list of all of the movies that you referenced that I haven't seen, and then I need to watch them and then report back on them on the show at some point.
Really?
Do you want me to write down Karate Kid? I've seen the Jaden Smith one. You mean the Jaden Smith one?
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I read a Monday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe. The Drake. We had up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours. Talking, well, let's talk some college basketball today. We will certainly do that with the conference tournament set. KU, K-State set for Kansas City this week. And Mizzou set with their seeding for Nashville coming up later on this week as well. We will be hanging out and doing a lot of things. Different places, shows in different spots. It is championship week going on. Should tell you that live coverage of the Big 12 tournament brought to you by Barstool Sportsbook, Inside Hollywood Casino, Greenlight Dispensary, Jay Rieger and Company, CBD American Shaman, and also Miller Lite. So be tuning in and listening and hearing where all the different shows will be and the different things we will have this week. And the cool stuff for you. KU will play at 2 o'clock coming up on Thursday. And they will face off against the winner of West Virginia and Texas Tech. So I'm guessing it'll be West Virginia. And that is not an easy opening game in the Big 12 tournament. Of course, the conversation around the Big 12 this year is that there really isn't an easy team or opening game for these seeded teams that will have a bye. The teams won't be playing in the first round. So it's not going to be an easy opening game. But West Virginia, a team that's 3-1 in their last 4 games. West Virginia, a team that one loss is a 2-point loss at Allen Fieldhouse against the Jayhawks. That's the team that KU, I'm assuming, will be matching up against on Thursday at 2 o'clock. K-State playing TCU Thursday night at 8:30. And Mizzou playing one of 3 schools. Ole Miss, South Carolina, or Tennessee. Friday at 2:30, they will play that game. We will have the KU game Thursday right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll be at different places with the Big 12 going on. Also, throughout the entire month of March Madness, we'll have different bracket contests. Tune in for that coming up next week when we'll tell you all about that because Selection Sunday is 6 days away. We are that close. A week from today, we'll be talking about the NCAA tournament bracket and where these teams are heading, what these teams are going to be going up against, what's the road, what's the path. Cannot wait for that. And I can't wait because all 3 teams are going to be in it. All 3 teams, we're going to be talking about what run they may make. Look at the bracket matrix, and you've got KU, K-State, and there are a couple of brackets in the bracket matrix that have Mizzou as high as a 5. Like all 3 schools, top 5 seeds. I was listening to the program on Friday, and they went back and did the research because that's what Curtis is going to do. And going back to 1979, he went all the way back to 1979. The lowest or highest, I never really get into or figure out that if you say, is it a low seed or is it a high seed? Is it a high seed, then it's the high number? Is it a 15 or a 16? Is that a low seed, a 15 or a 16? Is the high? They got a high seed this year. They got a low seed this year. I mean, it's kind of interchangeable. But the worst seeded team of the 3, going back to 1979, was an 8 seed. So if Missouri is as high as a 5, and K-State a 2, a 3, and KU a 1, it will be the lowest number of what those 3 schools add up to in the seed line. So let's say Mizzou's a 5, KU's a 1, and K-State's a 2. That adds up to 8. The lowest seeded team out of those 3 going back to 1979 was an 8. So that's also perspective of what this season has been. You've got Jerome Tang, Big 12 Coach of the Year. You've got expected we'll see what happens. USA Today put out their SEC awards and first team, second team. We'll see what the SEC comes up with. They typically do it on Tuesday of championship week. So we'll see if Dennis Gates is named the SEC Coach of the Year by the conference. But USA Today has named Dennis Gates the SEC Coach of the Year. You would have the two newcomers for these schools being named Coach of the Year in their conference, that both of the schools hit home runs, or slam dunks if you want to use the basketball terminology. Slam dunks. And for both of them, there was a little element of feeling like, is it a half-court shot? Like, you need to get this right, because where Mizzou was after Kim Anderson and Konzo Martin, and where K-State was after Bruce Weber, and how fractured what it felt like the fan base to the basketball program was. A year ago, we were broadcasting downtown this week, broadcasting downtown for the Big 12 tournament. And K-State had Bruce Weber do an exit press conference after he was fired. And wow, the radio that was. The press conference that was, where Bruce Weber was just simply saying, I'm in this position because of everybody else. It's the school, it's the fan base, it's the location. I work harder than anybody else out there, but I can't work hard enough to overcome the limitations that this school has. And you want to talk about setting a flamethrower to your legacy on the way out of a school when you've won a couple of conferences, when you've been to the Elite Eight. And then for that to be what people remember is the long hair because you weren't going to cut it until something happened with KU. And you're talking about the problems for you were only because of the school you were at and the fan base. And Gene Taylor goes out there and hires Jerome Tang. And less than a year later, from Bruce Weber's press conference to where we are now, Jerome Tang has been named the Big 12 Coach of the Year. K-State might be a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, and the Octagon of Doom is back in Manhattan. What a year for K-State. And Mizzou, after just apathy, year after year, apathy, Mizzou would lose. I wouldn't care. They'd be playing. I may or may not watch. What's the point of watching? From the end of Frank Haith to Kim Anderson to Konzo Martin, it was just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It just felt like it was a massive shipwreck that was happening from Mike Anderson to the next three coaches. And Konzo was supposed to recruit and get a bunch of players to Mizzou, and it was going to be fun basketball, and it turned out to be slow it down, defense, have a wrestling match, score 50, 60 points. And so Desiree Reed-Francois has a huge job on her hands to be able to go and find a coach that's going to come in to Mizzou, get some players, get some life back in the program, and get the fans back to Mizzou Arena. And she hired Dennis Gates. And it was not a universally excited hire by the fan base. Dennis Gates wasn't on the list of coaches that I had when first starting out and saying, okay, here are the coaches. Here are the coaches that I think K-State should go out and get. Here are the coaches that I think Mizzou should go out and get. And Dennis Gates wasn't on either of them because I didn't know anything about him. Then his name started surfacing, and I'm like, okay, let's look into Dennis Gates a little bit. We knew a lot about Jerome Tang, only that he hadn't been a head coach, but he had been a big part of building Baylor. He had been a big part of the transition from Baylor to being a school that just went out and tried to get the best players, and it looked like they were all cloned. They were all 6'8", rail thin, could shoot, could run, and they played a lazy zone. It felt like a YMCA 2-3 zone that Baylor was playing all the time. And it was, well, we're just going to out-athlete some teams. And they went to a few Elite Eights, so it wasn't a terrible strategy. But he was also a part of a coaching staff that changed from, let's go and get the best possible players available, to, why don't we go and get players that we feel like can come in and play and fit our style and what we want to coach to, and feeling like we've got a certain type of player, not just, well, this guy's a great athlete, so let's just bring him in. There's nothing wrong with getting the best possible player. There's nothing wrong with getting NBA players on your team. But if that's all you have, and then the defense they were playing, like, it was a shift change for Baylor in their identity, and Jerome Tang was a part of that. So we had an idea of Jerome Tang. Didn't know what he would be as a head coach, and he's far surpassed that. Dennis Gates was a guy that people had their preferences on coaches. They wanted Mizzou and Desiree Reed-Francois to go out and hire. And I don't remember Dennis Gates being number one on many lists. But looking at the resume, talking about it on the air, discussing it with different people, it was, man, look how bad Cleveland State was, and look what they did the last couple of years. That's at least exciting from somebody that built a program. And he did it with transfers. He brought in new players, meshed them, got them playing together, and they were able to go out and succeed. Well, if you're going to turn around Missouri, you're going to have to do it that way. You're going to have to bring in new blood, new players, and get them to play together on the same page. And that's exactly what he did. And I don't know if it'll be Nate Oates. I don't know if it'll be Dennis Gates that'll be Coach of the Year in the SEC. But even if Dennis Gates doesn't get it, the fact that the health of the programs right now, and we talked a little bit about this last week, about just how amazing this season has been for the local schools, but then hearing that on Friday of when the three schools have made it, the highest seed of the third school was an 8 seed when all three teams made it. Mizzou could be a 5. They're a 5 in a couple of brackets. Jerry Palm has them as a 6. Joe Lenardi has them as an 8. So those are the names that are out there, whether they're the best or not in bracketology. They typically don't really rank all that high in the bracketology rankings. Bracket Matrix puts together their rankings every year of the best brackets. Not typically is Lenardi or Jerry Palm a part of that, but those are the names. Those are the ones that people will go to and look at the most. And Palm has them as a 6. Lenardi has them as an 8. At Bracket Matrix, their high is a 5 seed. The lowest seed for them is a 10. So depending on who you're talking to is that Mizzou resume. But K-State's a 2, a 3. And they can absolutely solidify a 2. They beat TCU on Thursday and play in the semifinals on Friday. I think they're a 2 seed. They could still be a 2 seed if they lose to TCU. But I think they're one win away from K-State being a freaking 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. And it's just amazing juxtaposing or looking back, comparing last year at this time when Mizzou was just playing out the string of Cuonzo Martin. And there was a question of, are they going to make a move? And Bruce Weber was holding a press conference saying everything wrong was K-State's fault. And if you want to know why there's issues, hey, K-State fans in the university, look in the mirror. Remember when he said that? Look in the mirror. Not me look in the mirror. You guys look in the mirror. That's the problem. The Octagon of Doom is back. K-State fans will be all over downtown, as they should, ready for what could be a fun run. I texted Mick Schaefer last Sunday for Sunday Sound Off, and he sent out the topics, and he's like, anything else that's on your guys' mind? And I sent out a text, and I said, hey, maybe a quick conference tournament look ahead. You know, this time next week, we'd have an idea of what the seeding. I said in the text, I said, there's a chance on Friday afternoon, Mizzou can be playing Tennessee at 2:30. Kansas could be playing Texas on Friday or Kansas can be playing Baylor on Friday at 6, and K-State playing Texas Friday at 8:30. So there's a real chance that could happen. Nailed it! Now, I sent Mick that text last night, and I said, hey, remember this text last week? Totally nailed it. He goes, I'm pretty sure that Kansas State's going to be playing Oklahoma State, not Texas, on Friday night. That's a good point. Sorry about that. Oklahoma State and Oklahoma Bedlam coming up on Wednesday. Big one. The winner of that gets Texas. So great point, Mick. I apologize. I should have put that in the text, that it's going to be KU and Baylor, followed by K-State and Oklahoma State. Real chance of that happening. But the game right before that at 2:30 on the down in Nashville in the SEC would be Mizzou and Tennessee. Nailed it. Total luck, though. Just threw a dart. Just looking at, there's some things that could happen. But think about that. K-State and KU went on Thursday, and the seeds hold. Friday could be Mizzou, Tennessee, KU, Baylor, K-State, Texas. That is an amazing day of local basketball.
It feels like a modern golden age. I mean, we've talked about that a lot over these last couple of weeks, but in terms of there being a total moment of everything coming to a head, of all the conversations we've been having throughout this season, where these programs have turned around to, it will be a tremendous 8-hour window. You get all those games in, right? An unbelievable way to just mainline local basketball. And I think it's interesting to revisit the Bruce Weber press conference, because I think, if memory serves, I was on right after that presser happened, or as it happened. I think Lebo might have been like, hey, I know you guys don't play a lot of full pressers at night, but you want to check this one out?
Well, we played it live on the air and listening to it.
When it might have, I'm trying to figure out when that would have been then.
Because I remember we were broadcasting at McFadden's, and I'm sitting there, and as he's talking, I'm going, just eyes wide, writing things down, looking. Nobody could hear it because everybody's, having fun at McFadden's and everything. And I'm like, nobody else is hearing this right now in here. They're wondering why I'm like, what? And writing that down. And what? Writing that down. Like, that was unbelievable.
Yeah, so maybe I just hadn't heard it by then because it's a hectic time out there at the tournament. Yeah. And so maybe Lebo was like, hey, you just really ought to make sure you hear this Bruce Weber audio, because it's a doozy. And it's interesting because I look, the finger pointing and the hair growing and all of those things, I think, is all valid. I also found Bruce Weber in that night to be at least a little bit refreshing, because at least it was honest. It wasn't all fair, but it was honest. But in retrospect now, K-State fans can write that off as much as they want, because what it was in retrospect was inaccurate, or at least insufficient, because I'm sure K-State organizationally did some things between this last changing of the guards there, right? There were other things I would absolutely imagine that K-State did to kind of try to recorrect some of the mistakes they've made over the last handful of years. But to immediately see that program go from one head coach to the other, and immediately go from being kind of a disaster locally to being a team with a chance to be a 2-seed come tournament time, depending on how they fare in the Big 12 tournament, in a conference they have performed so admirably in this regular season, is just a perfect example of what getting the right head coach can do. But it's also a fascinating look, and this might be something we pick at more over the next few months, but to see where it is that K-State basketball broke and how that got mended again. Because to make it all about Jerome Tang is probably an oversimplification, but man, that overhaul is so dramatic that it jumps off the page.
Text comes in, says at 913-912-4810, text says, as a K-State fan, was it worth the last 3 seasons of Bruce Weber to get Jerome Tang? Emphatically, yes. How would Mizzou fans feel? Yeah. I mean, if you fired Konzo a year before they actually did, so that would be after the 21 season? Yeah, so after the 20, because they fired him after the 22 season. So if you fired him after the 21 season, Dennis Gates had only been in his second year at Cleveland State. I don't know who they would have hired. Maybe they would have hired Matt McMahon from Murray State, who's now at LSU. Mm-hmm. Who's had a better first year? Matt McMahon at LSU or Dennis Gates at Mizzou? And you can go, well, Matt McMahon had to change over almost everybody on their roster. Yeah, because Dennis Gates had a ready-made, just move-in ready program ready for him to turn into the team that he did. That obviously was not the case, but it's a good point that I wanted Konzo Martin out a couple of years earlier than what actually happened, because I think you can find out early on how it's going to go. And by waiting an extra year, whether that was money related or not, by waiting an extra year, Dennis Gates was ready. Dennis Gates had, been in the oven baking, and all of a sudden Konzo's done. The timer goes off, and Dennis Gates is out of the oven. It's fully baked and ready to go. It's like, all right, now it's good. It's not too early. You didn't have to go and like Kim English was a coach that a lot of people wanted. And the conversation around Kim English was, if you don't hire him now, the next time you're looking for a coach, is he going to be too big of a star for Mizzou? Essentially, are you going to go Billy Donovan with Florida? Billy Donovan was at Marshall, and he was like 15 years old as a coach. And Florida needed a new head coach. And they said, I mean, Billy Donovan is so young at Marshall. He hasn't proved a whole lot. But we think this guy is going to be a great coach. And if we don't hire him now, in a couple of years, somebody else will. So let's hire him and take our lumps and then see if we get it right. Well, they won back-to-back national championships. And Billy Donovan, they were right. They saw it early. They saw it before everybody else did and said, we're going to take a risk and hire an unproven guy who's really young and has had moderate success at Marshall in the very few games he's coached. But we think there's something different about this guy. They got it right. That would have been the route if Mizzou would have gone and got Kim English. We think there's something different about this guy. Hadn't really proven it outside of 1 year. Well, there's something different about Dennis Gates, too. It doesn't have to be the prodigal son returning. You can find success. You can find... Like, there is a national championship coach that will win a national championship in college basketball that is not coaching a Division I school right now. Excuse me, that's not coaching a Power 6 school right now. I'll say that. There's a coach that's going to win a national championship that right now, or even last year, say that wasn't coaching a Power 6 school, Power 5 plus the Big East. They're out there. Bill Self was at Tulsa at one point, and Old Dominion. Now we know he was going to win 2 national titles. You know, you never know where the coaches are. You got to find them and identify them, and then give them the tools necessary to go and succeed. Mizzou and K-State have done that. Obviously, KU has done that. KU, the number 1 seed, the outright winner, even with the loss at Texas. KU, the outright winner of the Big 12. Jalen Wilson, the Big 12 Player of the Year. DeJuan Harris, the Defensive Player of the Year. Grady Dick, second team All Big 12. And Kevin McCullough, third team All Big 12. DeJuan Harris was also honorable mention along with KJ Adams, which we'll talk with Matt Tate coming up 11 o'clock. And maybe somebody else can go through and look at who you would take off the third team to put DeJuan Harris on that. I don't really want to go through that, honestly. I wonder how Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, Big 12 point guard that leads in assist to turnover ratio and leads in assists is not even good enough for...
Does the defensive guy also, is he important on offense for the good team?
No.
Okay, all right.
No.
Because I was going to say that he has been like a pretty important part of the offense.
No, if I'm looking at first, second, and third team, I don't care about defense at all. That's just the way I played basketball. That's the thing for me. No, obviously, Defensive Player of the Year and assist to turnover ratio, number 1 in the Big 12, number 1 in assists in the Big 12, does not equal first, second, or third team. Only equals honorable mention. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Sometimes I worry that what I'm thinking about not making sense actually does make sense, and then I see smarter people go, this also doesn't make sense. This is what I thought last night when I saw our friend Scott Chasen, now with the Star, tweeting. I generally don't like awards, but someone would have to explain to me DeJuan Harris getting Defensive Player of the Year over Kevin McCullough, then McCullough landing on the All Big 12 third team and Harris not making a team. His argument is that McCullough is actually more valuable defensively and Harris is more valuable offensively. You could have just switched those two, and I would have been okay with it.
I would have totally been okay with it. I would have absolutely been okay with it. It would have made more sense to me.
Would have made more sense for sure.
If that was the case. I don't know. But either way, DeJuan Harris he may not have gotten first, second, or third team, but he is the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. Some good awards for KU. And of course, for K-State, you've got Noel. You've got Keontae Johnson. We mentioned that Jerome Tang was the Coach of the Year, but Noel and Keontae Johnson, first team, All Big 12, 2 players on the first team for Kansas State. It's pretty legit. And the Coach of the Year. And the Newcomer of the Year, Keontae Johnson. Unanimous as well. So some nice accolades going to K-State. And we'll see what the SEC awards and teams and things like that look like tomorrow, typically on a Tuesday when the SEC releases those. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810.
All right, so we know that DraftKings is your spot. We've told you about DraftKings. We've told you about where you go when you want to place any of your wagers on, I don't know, football, baseball, basketball. It's March, baby, and March means nonstop college hoops action, and it all starts with the conference tournaments. Who will earn their bid into the biggest tourney of the year, and who will be left waiting? Join the excitement. Make your bets with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5 on a pregame money line and get $150 in free bets if the team wins. Plus, all new and existing customers can take a shot at cashing in big with DraftKings stepped-up parlays. Boost your college basketball winnings with each leg you add up to 100%. And with so many games going on, games today, this afternoon, into tonight, tomorrow, this is the best time of the year because we've got basketball nonstop. And these college basketball tournaments, man, championship week is so much fun because teams are playing for their tournament lives. Some of the smaller conferences playing for their tournament lives. It's great, and it's going to be fun at DraftKings, and they've got you taken care of with those stepped-up parlays. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code 810WHB. Bet $5 on any college hoops pregame money line and get $150 in free bets if your team wins. That's only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code 810WHB.
Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 800-522-4700. 21 plus, physically present in Kansas. Bonus issued as free bets. 1 boost per eligible game. Opt-in required. 10 plus leg required for 100% boost. Deposit, parlay, and wagering restrictions apply.
We continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Matt Tate will be our guest coming up at 11 o'clock, KUSports.com, Lawrence Journal World, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. We will get in some NFL today. We talked the first segment there, college basketball, get into some Major League Baseball as the Royals. I mean, do we start to look at what the magic number is at the Cactus League for the Royals? Do we start to really break that down and see how many more wins or other teams' losses before they take home a championship for the Cactus League? I mean, why wouldn't we? Because people know this. Spring training wins and preseason wins in the NFL always correlate to success in the regular season.
I just want to know when the merch comes out because
Cactus League champs.
We already got some great Super Bowl merch. I think everybody loved that. Hopefully everybody got that. And then now I think it's about time to get some more City of Champions sort of stuff flowing now.
Yeah, the City of Champions. That's right. It would be 3 championships for the local schools in a calendar year. From KU to the Chiefs.
To the Cactus Royals.
To the Cactus
Royals.
To the
Surprise Royals.
That is the surprise. There you go. That is surprise.
Where was the Final Four last year?
That was in New Orleans.
Drake says New Orleans. Okay, so 2 of these could be champions who specifically are winning their titles in Arizona. I could not remember where the Final Four was. But Cactus League and the Super Bowl, Kansas City owns Arizona. I've often said this in my Phoenix Suns hat. It's back here.
Yeah, you
it's
are.
back here.
Okay.
It's a little vintage one. It's Diet Pepsi branded. I think it was a giveaway before I was born, if I had to guess.
Snapback.
Got it from a thrift store in probably Surprise, honestly.
Flipped backwards.
Yeah, wearing it forward's a real tough look. I look like I'm ready to paint your house in 1970.
That does look like a painter's cap. That is
Drake, would you trust me to come paint your house in this hat?
Not without the painter's flaps in the back.
I could add those. That's right now. I'm just sort of growing the hair out, but I would rather have the actual flaps. That's a good call.
If you
wear this today,
if you wear that hat, I would look at you and say you actually would call that a sky piece.
A sky piece.
That hat looks like somebody that wears that hat would refer to it as a sky piece.
I could probably get it higher up on my head too.
Got my sky piece on.
I've got an enormous head, so if I just go ahead and close up the snaps a few more and just set this thing on top, I'm gonna look like Abe Lincoln in here. You ever seen a stovepipe snapback? That's basically, see my reflection. That's basically where I'm at.
I was walking the dog the other day, and there was a man in my neighborhood at the park. This is like a little 5-car parking lot at the park, and he was next to his car, and he was in a top hat and tails, smoking a cigarette at the park, on like Saturday night or something. It was very strange. So
did you get the vibe that was just his stop, his little thing?
It was interesting. It was a top hat and tails, but then he wasn't wearing like a tux shirt. There was no tie. It was just a very puffy, setup.
Not
like
quite the ascot,
shirt like Seinfeld,
but like the Seinfeld puffy shirt.
It was, it didn't have the loincloth like Travis Kelce's suit did on the on SNL, which was a little bizarre for me.
Yeah,
looked like they weren't finished cutting that suit just yet. But I'm not a young, hip, well-dressed guy.
I can't pull off the fashion like that. I would look at it and go, why is that thing there?
I got to take another look at this.
Why is that thing hanging down like a kilt? Like it's supposed to be like you are from a native tribe and the rest of the suit is sort of translucent, but that is the only part that actually can block something. It just looks like that's hanging down just for extra protection. Extra blockage just in case.
I think this is just the football coming through where it's like, look, you do need to make sure everything that you've got there is where it needs to be. You can't risk, Heidi Gardner coming in and now you're suddenly catching an elbow somewhere you don't want to be catching an elbow.
Point. It could also be like football. They have those towels that you dry your hands off. Right in front of you.
That's what it looks like, actually.
It looks like one of those towels hanging down.
Oh, you know what? And see, there are like holes for the buttons, it looks like, on the loincloth sort of part of it. So I think you button that up, and now it's a little hand warmer for a quarterback. Think about that. That's what it was. It's just a hand warmer.
Multi-use. You can dry your hands. You can...
Those are sleeves. Those are extra sleeves hanging down, by the way.
Is that what it is?
That's what that is. It's double-breasted. I had caught that. It's just this suit is double most things, including double sleeves dangling down in front. I have really stressed out Renee by not knowing what I'm wearing for our wedding yet.
Okay.
It's tomorrow. No, that's not true. But I really stressed her out by not knowing what I'm going to be wearing, and I think now I've got an answer. I'm going to call it a Tarzan suit. It's going to be a regular suit with a loincloth over it.
Done. Done and done. What did you think of the performance from Travis Kelce?
I thought he did very well for himself. He looked very comfortable, and he looked as comfortable as I think most people could have been in most of the sketches.
Yep.
The monologue is a very tough spot to stand out there in front of America in one of the most sort of like iconic monologues you can give. I would say that his monologue was like a 7. And an SNL monologue 7 is a radio 450. So, yeah, I've got my, winners and losers, my hits and my misses.
Yeah.
But overall, very strong performance.
No, I thought it was really good. I was impressed by him. The monologue, you're absolutely right. I am always nervous for people when they walk out. When that door opens and they walk out, whoever it is, and now your host, Josh Briscoe. And that door opens. And you're walking out to not only that crowd, but it's live.
Yep.
And people are watching.
Yep.
And the walk from the door to the stage until the fans stop cheering can be incredibly awkward.
Seems like it would be.
Can be so awkward. And he sort of did the hands.
Little dance was a great call. He just hit his little Ellen, and that's...
Yep, that's exactly right.
It's
the
a
Ellen.
standard piece there
That's
in
right.
a little talk show filler.
Yep.
I do it before the show every day while the music's playing.
And I thought he did a great job of reading where it didn't look like he was reading. And
Absolutely.
That's not easy to do for somebody that's an athlete, somebody that's not in the entertainment business, you've got the cue cards you're reading through, but it never felt like Travis Kelce was reading. In fact, there were some cast members that I felt like you could tell they were reading. In the American Girl doll skit, the security guard that comes out, and they were like, that person, he goes over there and he's staring at the card.
He seemed like he
reading
wasn't
the
ready
card.
for his cue.
It's like,
yeah.
He's got like one line in the whole show.
Yeah.
He's got one line the whole show. How do you not nail that? Kelce messed up one line in the whole show.
Yeah.
Messed up one line, and that was when he was
The Street Fighter 2 or whatever he was playing, right? He kind of double clutched that one.
Well, the
I love that we're breaking down Kelsey's acting film.
know.
This feels so good.
I know.
This feels so close to a normal show, but it's just 1 degree off in a direction I'm very comfortable with.
it's when he was sort of the third person in the relationship of the parents when they were playing the songs.
And I watch from the corner. That one?
Yes, that one. At the way end, he started to talk and then stuttered and then started over.
Yep.
And then as it fades away and it's going to commercial break, you see him go, oh, like
Yep.
hands in the air, like, no, the whole thing, the whole skit got to the end. And if that's really it, if that's the only, to me, like noticeable one, I think that's pretty damn good.
I'm going to say 92 yards, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns.
Two touchdowns.
And I'm going to say a drop for that, and quarterback missed him on an open touchdown. Because the NFL Gives Back skit
You are 100%
is
right about
great.
this. 100% right
It's
about this.
really good. I thought maybe it was going to be like, oh, it's got Creed and Jason Kelce in it. Are people just going to be excited that they're...
Mm-hmm.
It was genuinely very funny. It is basically, if you haven't seen it yet, it's all over the digital. That was actually recorded, and it's all over online now. But it is... NFL players lifting women whose boyfriends can't lift them up because they just want to feel small sometimes. It is a hilarious bit. It is perfectly done by both Kelce's and Creed, and it didn't make the cut. And they open with the American Girl one, which I just think was a choice. I'm no prude, but that was a choice.
I loved the American Girl skit.
Did you really?
Oh,
I was uncomfortable. I know that was the point.
I thought it was. I laughed out loud about 3 times during the American Girl skit. That and the NFL Giving Back were my 2 favorite ones.
My 2 favorite were the NFL Gives Back and Straight Male Friend.
Straight Male
Friend really, that's the one that I laughed out loud at a handful of times.
What was his name when he was teaching self-defense?
Kurt Lightning is
Kurt Lightning.
that for me. That fills out my medal stand. I think I might go NFL Gives Back, Straight Male Friend, and self-defense / Kurt Lightning, because I could see Kurt Lightning being in a being a bit part in some sort of loose parody of
Magruder?
yeah, kind of a MacGruber kind of thing. I could see that being a recurring character.
Magruder or MacGruber? Which one was K-State? Which one's the SNL?
Gruber with a B, yeah.
Is SNL. Magruder was a
Think you
Wildcat,
could get a Chiefs 87 Lightning jersey today?
Well, hold on.
Kurt Lightning?
Can I go K. Lightning?
Kurt Lightning.
NFL.
I mean-
shop, Chiefs custom.
The amount of things that can be posted up in his locker from that
Oh my goodness!
night.
The number of wigs he wore.
That's true.
Dude had 6 wigs on. I don't think that's an
That's
exaggeration.
exactly right, yeah. because he was Glinda's partner. At
Which
the
was
funeral.
also funny. That one was uncomfortable and also good. I enjoyed that.
He was Heidi Gardner's ex.
Yes.
with
Also
the
good.
which was pretty
Way
good.
more hits than misses.
Heidi killed that one.
Killed it.
That skit was about Heidi Gardner.
And then Jason Kelsey with a very timely cameo.
That's exactly right. And Jason Kelsey, the biggest laugh of the day for Kelsey was when Travis mentioned that Peacock wouldn't even play Chasing Kelsey.
Catching Kelsey.
Catching Kelsey.
Catching Kelsey. Yeah, Peacock didn't even want it. That was a product of NBC Universal or whatever he said. Peacock doesn't want it.
Did you watch Catching Kelsey?
I really didn't, shockingly enough.
I didn't watch one episode of it.
Shockingly enough, I have not seen it. I've seen clips that make it seem unwatchable, like the ones they played, or the one they played at least, on SNL, which was also genius.
The reason I like the American Girls doll cafe or American Girl cafe is because Kelsey killed it. It was uncomfortable, right?
He sold it.
But his portrayal of the character was like a cast member.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
better. He and Keenan and Heidi were the three stars of that. And also, did you notice the doll, the boy doll, at the end?
No.
The Mahomes haircut?
Oh, did it really?
Yes.
Wow.
It was a Mahomes haircut with sunglasses on, like it was almost like it was a little bit of Patrick Mahomes over there.
What a call.
It was kind
That
of
had to be on purpose.
It was kind of a Patrick Mahomes doll that Travis Kelsey had. You bring it like that, it's going to turn some heads.
I have now made a custom 87 Lightning jersey on NFLshop.com.
Love it. He's saying that about a doll. He's saying that about a doll.
Even revisiting the skits now again in retrospect, I'm remembering it even more fondly. I really do think there were not a lot of duds out of that for him at least. And Weekend Update's always pretty funny to me. I know Kelsey wasn't involved in any of that, but like if you were watching for Kelsey, I guess that could have lost you. Kelsey Ballerini, not necessarily for me. She seems lovely. She seems talented. That wasn't my jam.
I thought it
would have
was-
been interesting to have him hosting a show with a more high energy musical guest.
Well, here's the thing. She is pretty high energy because she's country pop, but she's singing songs from her new album, which is about her divorce
Okay.
from the other country singer that I don't know his name right now.
I also don't. Well,
Because they
find
got
out.
No, Ballerini's her maiden name. They got divorced.
Okay.
He released a song.
Divorce from Morgan Evans.
Okay, Morgan Evans.
I
sure.
don't know
I'll
who
take-
this is
I'll-
either,
I'll
but
take your word for it.
Yep.
But I did some research on this after, it was all Kelsey Ballerini and divorce and
yeah.
everything. I'm like, okay. So he releases a song that essentially is like, I would have done anything for you. And how often were you saying I love you and you didn't believe it? Like, I'm so caught off guard by this. So she released 5 songs that were just like, here's reason 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6. And those were 2 songs. So they were very low key and telling stories about their relationship and why
Sure.
they got divorced.
Yeah.
So it kind of wasn't going to be upbeat. And I was a little surprised because she's got some fun, some upbeat songs, and she went with that. But that's perfectly fine. That's okay.
I will amend that then with that background info now in my grasp. I will say that it would have been nice for him to be perhaps with a musical guest who, 'cause sometimes they pull them into a little more of the show, right? Just every once in a while.
True,
Like
yeah.
if it would have been someone who I feel like maybe he's listening to have their little bit of a dynamic, that would have been fun. But also, and I'm not a Kelsey Ballerini guy. That's okay. That's all right. If people enjoyed the little break, that's all right.
Yeah,
Very
that's-
few
that's
nits
fine.
to pick, honestly.
It's fine.
I enjoyed it altogether.
I absolutely enjoyed it, but I would.
The Too
I would
Hot to
agree.
Handle skit I thought was pretty funny. It
one
was
was
just,
that one?
it was like the third sketch where he was sort of a pervert creep, but it was with, I can't remember the actress's name, who was wearing the like bikini t-shirt thing at the end. They kept getting penalized.
yeah,
They were
yeah,
costing
yeah.
the whole house money.
Oh, I hated
because
that one.
Did you really?
I hated that
I thought
one.
it was kind of funny.
I
It was
thought
really
the-
very strange.
I thought, how did that make the show, but not the NFL Gives Back?
I think NFL Gives Back should have made the show over everything except maybe Straight Male Friend and Kurt Lightning were both going to make it. They both deserve to. Everything else.
By the way, he and Heidi Gardner. A lot of skits were there together.
A lot of them together.
A lot of skits where they were together.
I wonder if Heidi Gardner was heavy on the writing side this week also.
Okay, what if we had a skit where Travis is just picking me up and I'm a front backpack?
It doesn't even have to. It doesn't even have to make the show.
This is the premise. We're starting from this.
Here's where we begin.
Like Step Brothers, the story is that it started from they wanted to make a movie where two grown men made a bunk bed that collapsed on one of them, and they went from there.
That's how
Step
awesome.
Brothers ended up getting made.
That's incredible.
Heidi Gardner. What if we did a skit to where I just jump into his arms and I'm a front backpack?
Oh yeah, we'll get Creed Humphrey. Yeah, you can jump into Creed Humphrey's. Okay, Jason Kelsey. Yeah, you can jump into Jason's arms.
Okay, let's start this. How do we do that? Let's noodle a little bit. How do we figure this out? Where do we go here? She was in bed with Kelsey on the one skit where it was like the creeper.
Yeah,
she stood somebody up from a random dating app.
That was a
choice.
That was a dribbler first single to me. Maybe it was a 3-yard run on first down.
Again, there were like 3 that I think could have gone away, and they could have ended or brought in the NFL gives back.
That one should have made the show. Absolutely.
I was waiting for the Creed Humphrey.
Me too.
And I'm like, okay, I know Creed Humphrey's there because they put out the picture of Creed Humphrey's dressing room. I'm like, where's it at? And then the next morning we see that Creed Humphrey and Jason Kelsey. So it would have been the second skit that Jason Kelsey was in, along with
the monologue,
getting the monologue shots with him and him cracking up when Catching Kelsey didn't make it on Peacock. So, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun night, and I don't think it'll be the last time he's asked to host Saturday Night Live. Right. And I think, was it 2-3 weeks ago when they announced that he was going to host Saturday Night Live? I said, I think me, you, and Mick talked about it. And I said, I'm not looking at Travis Kelsey to be The Rock ever, but I think he's got a future once football is over to be in movies and entertainment business in some way, shape, or form, to where he can then surpass to some degree of only known as a football star to the kids that are then growing up now that only know The Rock because of movies and TV, that don't know about him from wrestling or even playing football ever, that he's just a movie star. I'm not saying that's going to be Kelsey because The Rock is phenomenal. He's really good. He has transitioned maybe better than anybody else. But I think Kelsey has a future.
And he was really, really good in the taped stuff. Did you see This Is the End? Movie came out like 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
The Channing Tatum scene, his reveal?
Yeah.
Watching SNL on Saturday made me think Travis Kelsey's ready for some of those weird cameos and totally willing to do them, which I think is going to be great for his post-playing career.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling more Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, wrapping things up here in this 10 o'clock hour. We'll talk with Matt Tate, some college basketball, get back into that conversation. We also have a number of things to get into with the NFL, the Combine, wrapping up a week from today. I believe a week from today at like 11 o'clock in the morning is when the, as they call it, the legal tampering period, or the opening for teams to negotiate with players legally at that point. That starts a week from today. So next Monday will be Selection Sunday Monday. We'll be talking about the bracket, and also at that point probably hearing rumors and conversations about teams that are looking into signing players or whatever it might be. Derek Carr is a New Orleans Saint.
He's a Saint, everybody.
We always thought he was anyway.
That was a weird one, huh?
So Derek Carr to the Saints.
I'm going to pencil that one in for later, too.
Yeah.
This is weird. I kind of get it, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, both.
Both, right?
I can totally see both with that.
Do you think Jets fans are like freaking out right now?
Yeah.
They're starting to get towards really uncomfortable binary. Aaron Rodgers or the void.
It's back-to-back years to where they feel like second place to a difference-making player. Tyreek Hill last year, they finished second. Derek Carr, maybe they finished second, maybe they finished third. But either way, they were in the running for Derek Carr.
Or maybe they won by not getting Derek Carr.
But then, like, do you win if Zach Wilson is the quarterback?
No one wins then. Certainly not the Jets.
Because we actually saw that.
Yeah.
Literally no winning.
Exclusive home of Championship Week. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sports Radio 810 WHB is bringing you a full week of college basketball action. We'll have exclusive live play-by-play of the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City, plus the SEC, the Big 10, ACC, Pac-12, and Missouri Valley Championship.
make others millions off of picking every game exactly right, because it's just got to be the easiest tournament ever to pick, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's obvious what's going to happen.
I wonder if there's even going to be a perfect Big 12 bracket. Like, we talk about how hard it is for an NCAA tournament bracket. Are you going to get a perfect Big 12 bracket? Because winning this thing might be as difficult as making a Final Four in the actual NCAA tournament. Not the same as winning a national title, but winning this one might be like the equivalent of making a run to the Final Four.
Well, for sure. I mean, you've got a Kansas team. We'll just take them since that's what you have me on for. But you could do it with every school probably. But you've got a Kansas team that's going to play, potentially play anyway, West Virginia, which has shown they can beat anyone. They went to Ames and won recently. They beat K-State over the weekend. They took KU to the wire recently. I mean, that's a good basketball team and a tournament team. And then if you get by that one, probably looking at Baylor. And then if you get by that one, it could be Texas again. I mean, that's insane. And it's tough every year. Like, I don't want to overstate it and act like, oh, this is the first time the Big 12 tournament's ever been hard. It's hard every year. And there's been a few roads like that in the past for certain teams, but I don't think it's been like that for every team. And I think it is this year. And you look at a team like K-State, had a monster year, fabulous season. Tang, Coach of the Year in the Big 12. I mean, just great stuff, right? Well, their reward is a 6-seeded TCU team in the first round. What? Like TCU could win the whole thing. TCU could go to the Final Four. So it's a monster. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it always is fun, but this year should be more fun than ever.
So to go to a Final Four, you've got to win 4 games. And if you're a 1 seed, you should beat the 16 seed. That shouldn't be an issue, sans Virginia. So if there are 3 games that KU has to play, they would play, assuming West Virginia wins, they would play, according to Bracket Matrix, a 10 seed in the tournament. They would then play, if seed holds, Baylor, a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. And then they would play, if seeds hold, either Texas or K-State, a 2 seed or a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. A 10 and maybe 2 2s to win the Big 12, as opposed to what you would face off to go through to
road,
it's a harder road than
really,
going to the Final Four.
Yeah, the Big 12 tournaments, then they're a 1 or a 2, right? Their seed line moves up even. So
that's right. Yeah.
It's a harder road for sure, because what you get with that 1 seed in the tournament is 16, 8, 9. Oh no, you're talking about 3. So 8, 9, 4, 5, and then 2, 3, right? So yeah, it's harder. There's no question about it, but it's matchups, it's timing, it's rhythm, it's flow, it's all those things. So, it's hard to say exactly what it'll be, but I know it'll be a dogfight starting on Wednesday night. I mean, the 2 early games will be really fun. Oklahoma State may need to win to get in. I don't think they can afford to lose that one. I think their win over Texas Tech was huge, but I don't think they can afford to lose to OU. And then on top of that, you've got Texas Tech and West Virginia, which same sort of thing, although Texas Tech, as you guys have probably discussed, has its own mess going on right now that doesn't even really have anything to do with X's and O's and points and defense. So that's a whole other topic. But it's going to be a blast, and it's crazy because before Saturday, I think the way the standings broke out, it was the 4-5 game was potentially TCU Texas. And so that would have been KU's second-round opponent, which Baylor's not much easier than that. But it's just, that in itself shows you how there's no hiding, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're seated or what side of the bracket you're on. You're going to have to beat 2, maybe 3 really good teams to survive this thing, and we'll see who's up for it.
It might have happened more times than I can remember, but I don't really remember a Wednesday night that had 2 really good matchups with 4 teams that at some point in this year had a case for the NCAA tournament, and you've got 2 teams in West Virginia that I think is now in the tournament by finishing 3-1. Even if they lose to Tech, I think they're in, but it would certainly behoove them to knock off Texas Tech. And then Oklahoma State, I think, probably needs to play to Friday, so beat Oklahoma and beat Texas to make the tournament. So you've got teams that are playing on Wednesday night that have a chance of earning themselves a bid to the NCAA tournament, and 2 pretty good matchups and even an Oklahoma team that played the way that they did, wrapping up the season. Like, I don't remember there being a Wednesday night that was like, no, actually, you would benefit. It would not be a waste of time or money to go to the Big 12 tournament on Wednesday night.
Right.
That always feels like it's the warm-up act to then, okay, here's Thursday. But Wednesday is a pretty good night, too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Oklahoma, as you said, 10th in the conference. They beat the tar out of Alabama, and they just beat TCU.
Mm-hmm.
The Bama game was a month ago or whatever, so maybe you say, yeah, kind of fluky, whatever. But no, they just beat TCU this weekend. I mean, it's we saw how close they played Kansas a couple of times. So it's incredible, and it will be fun. It will be worth watching.
Yep.
Usually, like you said, there's been maybe one team that fell into that 7th spot that you're thinking, that's a pretty good team, and they might be worth watching Wednesday, but they're probably going to beat the heck out of whoever they play. So maybe I'll go and then go across the street at halftime and have some more fun or whatever it is, But yeah, not this year. And I'll say this too, man. Like, I hope those 4 teams that are playing on Wednesday, I hope the right thing happens for at least 2 of them to get in, because I think I think 7 getting in this season sounds really too low. I think the Big 12 is an 8-team bid or an 8-bid conference, and I think 8 teams deserve to go. And so if they only get 7, I mean, that's been done before. This season has not been done quite like this. So I think that it'd be important for them, one of them, and I think at this point it is Oklahoma State that's the one that has to do it, because I think West Virginia's in, and I think obviously everybody else after that is. So it's really maybe as much as Texas and Kansas State and all those teams, would love to win this thing and walk away with even more bragging rights and all that. It may be Oklahoma State that has the biggest and most to gain and most on the line in this tournament, which is pretty cool because, as you said, they get to play the extra game on Wednesday, and maybe that benefits them. We shall see, though. They could easily lose that game as well.
Yeah, I think West Virginia's in, and then Texas Tech would have to win the whole thing to get in. So there's not going to be, unless Texas Tech plays. Well, no, it wouldn't even matter because I think Oklahoma loser is eliminated. Oklahoma, I think, needs to probably play to Saturday. I think Oklahoma would need to beat Oklahoma State and Texas, and then probably beat Kansas State, TCU. Depending on what other conference tournaments happen, because they're pretty far down, even in the bubble. But Oklahoma State, I think if Oklahoma State plays to Friday, I think Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma and Texas, I think the Big 12 gets 8 teams. And again, if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma and gives Texas a run for their money, again, depending on what happens in other conferences, they may get 8. But I think they have 7 now, regardless. And then I think it really comes down to what Oklahoma State does on Wednesday night, and then really on Thursday night in the start of the second session against Texas. And they can absolutely win that game because Texas, they take care of KU on Saturday, but they haven't been, setting the world on fire before that particular game. And I think that was a big game for Texas. And sometimes you go into a game and say, okay, who needs it more? If these are closer in talent teams and athleticism, which team may be playing with more desperation? I think that was Texas, and I didn't think KU would go down to Texas and win that game. I thought it was too tall of a task, even how Texas was playing. So they go down and they lose, and Bill Self was sort of disappointed that they didn't play well, and he felt like there were times where they didn't really compete. The loss to Texas, but still not losing sight of the fact that they won the Big 12 outright this year. How do you think this team weighs that as they get ready for the Big 12 tournament?
Talking to them down there afterwards, I mean, they were pretty embarrassed, I think would be a decent word. They know they kind of no-showed and they didn't put their best out there on the court. But at the same time, I think they were happy and rightly giving plenty of credit to Texas. As you said, Texas not only played more desperate, but played better. I mean, they were fired up, and they needed that, and they wanted that, and they got it, and they got it convincingly. So I think because of the way that played out, I think those guys, the Jayhawks, were like, well, yeah, that sucks. That wasn't any fun. We didn't play very well, but this one's over, okay, what's next? And I really did get a feel from them that they weren't going to leave and really lose sleep over it. They weren't going to dwell on it. They weren't going to overanalyze it. They weren't going to worry too much about that one game. And I don't think they should. I mean, I think you got to move on. And there's enough, and it sounds like excuses, and it sounds like, a little bit of arrogance and whining and all that. I get that. But, there's enough in play there that you can justify it with. Senior night for Texas wanting revenge on the game that Kansas whipped them, Texas needing it to get right after losing 2 in a row. All those things, they favored Texas and really went against Kansas and didn't do Kansas any favors. So I think it's easy to just throw that one away and say, hey, it's not a big deal. The big deal becomes if we don't respond to it the right way. And so that's where your Hall of Fame coach and your 2 starters from last year's national championship team and all that stuff, that's where those guys come into play. And they're the ones that have to, quickly right the ship again and just refocus it and get everybody back on the same page and say, hey, if we play like that, we'll lose in the second round and maybe have a dogfight on our hands in the first round. So let's throw that one away. Let's play better basketball. Let's get back to what we're about, what we do, and we go from here. And that was the vibe I got from them. It didn't seem like anything where they were really over panicking or anything like that. They understood exactly why they got what they got. They believe they deserve they got what they deserved, and now it's on to the next one.
Yeah.
So, it's weird too because the game flips the other way and they win the conference by 3 games. In a lot of ways, I think it probably was supposed to happen that way. This was not a conference that should have been won by somebody who cleared everybody by 3 games. This was a conference that came down to the wire and should have. So all's well that ends well, and you got 3 or 4 really good teams in this conference that have a chance to go make a run to the Final Four or beyond, and Kansas is still one of them.
Matt Tate is our guest, KUSports.com, Lawrence Journal World, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. What does your daughter think about the bench for KU? Is it a Oh, it's great. It's great. Love it. Is it a concern for her at all, the bench for KU, or is she fine?
Well, she's concerned. I mean, she's going on 3.5 months now, so really everything's concerning for her still.
She doesn't have a care in the world other than where she's going to poop, sleep, and eat. That's really it.
That's right, yeah. She we get 10 minutes off schedule, and she's thinking she's never going to eat again. So
that's exactly right.
That's why we're rolling with the feeding right here. But she's enjoying
awesome.
it, I can tell you that. But no, about the bench, I think somebody asked me at the Texas game, when you look, and granted, it's so hard to do it in that window because it was such a bad day,
yeah,
and they played poorly. But when you look at that bench, and Self has to look down there and decide, hey, I'm gonna go to this guy. Who does he trust most? Who's the one guy that you feel on that bench is going to go in and deliver? And right now, I don't think there is one.
Wow.
I think there are guys who can. And I think you've seen some good moments from Joe Yesufu. You've seen some good moments from Ernest Udeh. And that may be about it. I mean, Bobby Pettiford's had his moments, but not lately. And then we know MJ Rice and Zuby and Zach Clements. They're not doing a whole lot. So I think that's the part that's most concerning is there's just not an automatic guy that if you need your bench, you can say, okay, let's go get it. Here he is. And, they've tried to go with Joe as the spark. Grady didn't have a really good start to the game the other day, and Joe came in for him early and didn't really impact it in a positive way either. So then it became sort of musical chairs, and I think that's the scary part is when Self gets into the musical chairs situation where it's just like, okay, MJ, go give it a shot. Well, God, you didn't guard at all. Okay, you're out. Bobby, go get him. Try to guard the guy. Just guard the guy. Well, now he turns it over 3 times, too. He guarded him, but he turned it over 3 times. And it just becomes, okay, who can go? Joe, go get him. It's just musical chairs is a disaster. So I think they need those guys. I think they need them to deliver. I think they need 1 or 2 of them to step up. But if we're getting down to it, nobody in that entire Kansas organization is going to try to ride with those guys at all. They are going to benefit from the extra long timeouts in the tournament. They're going to beg and plead with the starting five to play smart basketball and not commit silly fouls so we don't have to sit you on the bench. And then they're going to ride with their 5 starters, and they're going to say, drink lots of water, get good sleep, because you're going to have to play the entire tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that the bench can't come in and give something, and maybe by doing that, maybe that actually helps the bench. Maybe you even proclaim that and say, look, we're not counting on you guys. So if we need you, you got nothing to lose. Give it all you got, play loose, have fun. Because we're really not going to give you very many minutes, so don't worry about it.
That's right.
I don't think that's probably the pregame speech, but it can be said without being said, I think. And maybe that will help those guys as much as it helps the team as a whole, because right now it is really hard to look at any one of those guys and trust that they're going to give you very much.
Matt Tate is our guest. Jalen Wilson, the Big 12 Player of the Year, unanimous selection, Big 12 Player of the Year. His journey has been really interesting as someone who ended up redshirting his freshman year, maybe not the plan, but still redshirt his freshman year with the injury, and then decided to return to KU and wins Big 12 Player of the Year. This is, for KU, they've got back-to-back Big 12 Players of the Year. Who at one point thought about going pro and returned, and then won Big 12 Player of the Year. And both of them redshirted for a little bit of time. Like Ochai redshirted as, the non-conference. And then, in January, they pulled the red shirt off of him. And then Jalen Wilson redshirts as well. Like, I don't know if we've ever seen back-to-back conference players of the year in a big conference that at one point redshirted their freshman year.
No, it's incredible. I've been a big fan of Jalen's for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I like Self. You see that from Self when he talks about him, the admiration and appreciation and just flat out, respect he has for the kid. And he has matured an amazing amount in his career at Kansas. And that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do in college as a human, not just a basketball player, but just as a dude who goes to school as a 17, 18-year-old punk high school kid who thought he owned the world. And then you get up here and you realize, well, my God, there's a whole world I didn't know about, and I'm nothing in it. And then you spend 3-4 years growing and figuring that out and becoming who you are, and that's life. So, it's somewhat natural, but it's been really cool to watch it with Jalen under such a microscope.
Yeah.
It's so much harder, I think, to do it when you're a Kansas basketball player, and he's done it in tremendous fashion. So, it's obvious to see how much appreciation Self has for him, but I'll be honest. I thought he was an important part to come back, and I thought it was huge that they got him back. But I'm not sure I saw him as Player of the Year when he announced he was coming back. I thought he could be really good. I thought he could be all league, but the year he's had, I think, has exceeded so many people's expectations, and probably not his own. And we're supposed to talk to him here in a couple hours today, and that's the number one question that I want to ask. When you decided to come back, was this it? Was this the thought?
Mm-hmm.
Were you, hey, I'm going to go win Player of the Year? Because, that was it for Ochai. It was a big part of it. He said, Bill Self explained to me when I was going through my decision what the vision looked like if I came back. And it was all this. It was Player of the Year. It was All-American. It was face of the program. And I'm very curious to see if Jalen had those same thoughts or those same conversations, because it's worth asking him, because he's shown, and not that Ochai wasn't, but Jalen maybe above anybody I've seen in a long time has shown that this whole thing was about, I don't give a rip. It's team. It's team. It's team. If we win and we beat Texas and I score 2, great. I don't care. If I score 23 and we lose to Texas, I don't care about that either. I'd rather win and score none. So, there's a lot of guys that operate that way, and that's the Bill Self way in a lot of ways. But I don't know that many guys have taken to it quite like Jalen has. So I'm eager to hear his answer to that. I'm sure he did. He's a confident dude. I asked him a week ago or so, I think before senior night, if when he got here, if he was thinking he was a one and done, because that's certainly the way it kind of carried out when he first got here. And he laughed. He laughed at the question, not, I don't think because I asked it or the way I asked it. I think he laughed because he answered it by saying, yeah, if I think every kid kind of thinks that. And you find out pretty quickly, coming to play college basketball here can humble you in a hurry. And so I think he was laughing at himself for just being so stupid to think he was worth being a one and done. He's like, that's that maturity thing there. So what a year, what a career. I think it's awesome that he that he ended up winning this award, because I think, regardless of what had happened, he was going to go up in the rafters anyway. And now, as a likely consensus All-American and Big 12 Player of the Year, he'll be up there. And so to do it on the heels of winning a title where everyone else left you and you came back and you got your moment and you got your case, or were able to make your case for the Raptors without that team, that's pretty remarkable stuff.
Visiting with Matt Tate. Real quick, what's the calculus on Defensive Player of the Year, number 1 in assist-to-turnover ratio, number 2 in assists per game in the conference, and honorable mention? Not even a third team.
It doesn't. It's. I'll tell you what it is, because I'm gonna take some shots here a little bit, but that's coaches. That's coaches that probably shouldn't have these polls or make these votes, because a lot of times they just fill them out quickly and say, okay, here we go. I think it's possible they got caught up in we can only have a 1 point guard on each team, and so one of those things when that's not the case. I mean, I'm an AP voter this year, and it's been a beast to try to fill out my poll every week. Unlike, I knew it was going to be hard, because I remember Jesse Newell getting harassed and kind of liking it, So right. I always liked it. I always liked that Jesse did it and I didn't have to do it, but now he's doing the Chiefs, so they had to find someone else, and I hesitated to accept it, but I can take it. And it's been so hard. But I got to vote with that for Big 12, which I had before, and then also All-American as well, and national stuff and all that. And so anyway, for the Big 12 stuff, I had DeJuan on my second team, and I don't think that's a reach. I think he is one of the 10 most important players in this entire conference, and on top of that, I think, as some of the things you just mentioned with his defensive numbers and his assists and all that, it's not like he doesn't have a pretty good resume statistically to back it up. So it's not just truly like value. It's not MVP only. It's there's some numbers there to go with it. So for him not to even make a third team at least, and I think the writers, I think we only do a first and second team, but and then honorable mention, coaches have a third team to bail them out, and they still didn't get it. So
that's great.
I don't quite understand it. I don't think anybody's going to care about it. In a lot of ways, it may have been, there's 20 guys I'd rather put, or I guess 15 in this case, right? So there's 15 guys I'd rather put ahead of him, but I don't want to slight the kid. So I'll make him here's how we'll do it. I'll give him Defensive Player of the Year because he deserves something, and then I'll put the other guys on the 15 spots for the first 3 teams. And that's probably how it went. I mean, and if ever there was a year where it was hard to do, this was probably it. So, it's not, they don't deserve to have their houses egged and things like that. But it was weird. It didn't add up. I'm with you there. It didn't look like it made any sense.
Yeah, and I don't buy the, hey, you need 3-point guards. There are 15 players in the first, second, and third team, and there are 3 non-guards. That's it.
Right.
There are
exactly.
12 guards out of the 15 players. 3 forwards that are listed there. So we'll see what happens. Matt Tate, KUSports.com, Lawrence Journal World, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. Matt, you're the man. Very much appreciate the time, as always. We'll be reading and watching and looking at your coverage of the Big 12 tournament. I appreciate it. And tell your daughter that I really don't put much stock in teams that don't have a bench. It's not a big deal to me. I think when it comes to the NCAA tournament, it's your 5 starters that matter the most, and so I think they'll be fine.
She'll be super relaxed
good.
about that, and happy to hear it. And then maybe I'll put her picks in my blog too. Have you seen these? This is a thing I've not seen it before, but I saw it at Texas and I saw it at Oklahoma. They do the halftime baby race. Have you seen this? So they put these little, like crawling infants on the court, and they have to go free throw line to half court, and the winner gets a prize, and so I've never seen anything like it, and I cringed a little bit watching it. But maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe I'll have her pick her bracket, and she'll just crawl to one logo or the next.
Great.
She'll probably beat her old man.
Great, absolutely, yes. She will absolutely. I'll put money on her bracket. I'll place her bracket. That's who wins these things.
That's right.
Matt, you're the man. Appreciate the time. Thank you, sir, and I appreciate still being able to join us while feeding your daughter. Look at that, talented guy. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it,
Piece
brother.
of cake. Thanks, Jason. We'll take care, man. We'll see you soon.
See you, buddy. How about that? His 3-month-old daughter eating pieces of cake. So good for Matt Tate, KUSports.com, Lawrence Turner World, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We continue rolling. Some news out of the NFL, some franchise tags being placed on players because tomorrow, 3 o'clock, is the deadline. So we're looking at 27 hours and 27 and a half hours to be able to place the franchise tag on somebody. And we're seeing a couple of teams placing franchise tags on players. Orlando Brown, still no news with what the Chiefs are going to do there. The expectation is in the next 27 hours, they will have made a decision that they will place the franchise tag on him. A lot of conversation about Lamar Jackson as well. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
The Big 12 tournament field is set, and if you're looking to catch the action live, Tickets for Less can help save you money on your seats. Lock in your tickets now from Tickets for Less, the official ticket marketplace of the Big 12 Conference. TicketsForLess.com is your go-to for tickets without fees. Plus, you can get extra savings when you use promo code 810radio at checkout. If you've ever tried to buy tickets anywhere else, you see a price, you go, oh, that's not too bad. You click on it, you get all the way to checkout, you give them their info, and then all of a sudden it's multiplied by a factor of 1 billion. Well, you're not going to find that at ticketsforless.com. What you are going to find is transparent pricing and great deals, even better deals when you simply enter the code 810radio on the checkout page at ticketsforless.com.
The wait is over. Marijuana is now legal and available.
tournament, some KU, some award season. We talked some college basketball in the first hour. We talked Saturday Night Live in the first hour, Travis Kelce's performance. We did that. Text comes in, says, I used my Jason Anderson fast-forwarding skills during the singing part. Horrible.
What's that supposed to mean? People usually fast-forward through your show or what?
I think maybe my fast-forwarding through, like, sports and stuff and watching things on delay and then fast-forwarding to catch up. So maybe they're saying that started it late and then fast-forwarded. I was able to do that, too, because I didn't even start until, like, 11:30 is when I was finally able to break free and then go and watch that. So, yeah, fast-forwarded through the commercials, but not through the singing part. Tex says, did we all enjoy it so much because we were all well-versed on Travis Kelce? Other markets might not feel the same, ?
Probably. Yeah, who's an equivalent NFL player who we would all know but isn't a quarterback?
I got one for you because they put out a photo of like different football players that have done it before. I'll get to the end with the one that I think is maybe equivalent. They put out Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Tom Brady, and then J.J. Watt. I think J.J. Watt might be the equivalent where if you're a Houston Texans fan and he was hosting, you might be like, oh, this is great. Whereas if you're not a Houston Texans fan and you watch, are you going to maybe feel the same? I don't know. I don't remember J.J. Watt, but I think Kelce was pretty good. And the reaction from just people around the NFL.
Yeah, football people seem to be enjoying it. It was being on Chiefs Twitter during it was great because people were live tweeting it like a game. I mean, it was seriously like Weekend Update went on a little long. People were like, establish the Kelce. Come on. Feed it to Kelce. This is ridiculous. You're stalling out again. Come on, man. But yeah, I think J.J. Watt is a good comparison, except for I think Travis Kelce is so incredibly understood to be cooler than J.J. Watt. Like Travis Kelce was that was a Dior suit upon further Googling that had the extra sleeves in the front that looked like a loincloth.
Yeah.
I think J.J. Watt probably hosted in something sensible.
I think
that
it was
would be
just
my
a t-shirt.
guess.
The picture I saw, like he was just in like a white t-shirt or something.
Well, he was also
very medium.
he was doing curls during his opening monologue just because he can never not be getting in that extra work.
Never not working.
But like J.J. Watt has a tiny bit of sort of like it can be a little corny sometimes, not in a hurtful, harmful way, but he can be a little corny. And Travis Kelce is like this swaggering guy who's trying to be a crossover star that goes all the way back genuinely to catching Kelce. Like that was a weird thing the NFL players were not doing. So I think J.J. Watt is a good comparison where Travis Kelce is. The Super Bowl was obviously huge. Him and his brother, him and his mom was a huge addition to what people think of him. I mean, how much people think of him in a way that J.J. Watt never reached. So Kelce might be a bigger star at this point too, which I probably wouldn't have argued before this year's Super Bowl, but I think he is now.
I don't think he'd have gotten it without the podcast.
I think the podcast and the entire Kelce family becoming a thing, I absolutely think led to that, which is just goes to show that start a podcast and you too can host SNL someday. That's what put him over the edge. There are a lot of NFL players never hosted SNL. 2 NFL players active hosting a podcast together, both on SNL.
At the
Take that.
At the risk of searching something on Twitter.
Good luck, man. It is Mad Max out there right now. Don't click any links. They don't go anywhere.
I searched SNL J.J. Watt monologue just to see what the reaction was, because the reaction we've seen from Kelce is, boy, he killed the monologue. That was good. It was funny. And just reading through some of the reactions, J.J. Watt's monologue was actually really funny. Delivery was well done. Timing was spot on. J.J. Watt was surprisingly good with his monologue. J.J. Watt had a good monologue. Whoever wrote J.J. Watt's monologue should be thrown in prison forever.
The internet.
J.J. Watt did a very solid job with the opening monologue on SNL. SNL monologue. I like J.J. Watt, but he's a football player, and he's not funny, and neither was the monologue. J.J. Watt nailed the monologue. J.J. Watt, that was incredibly hilarious monologue. The SNL monologue from J.J. Watt was more funny than the cold open. Really enjoyed J.J. Watt's monologue. J.J. Watt did a great job on the... There you go. So... it seems like a lot of people enjoyed that. I don't remember the show. I'll be quite honest with you. I don't remember. It was back in February 1st of 2020.
I've got it open right now. I obviously have it on mute, but he is wearing a very sensible sort of dark charcoal suit with a light
there you
blue button up. That's J.J. Watt.
Very good.
Also, just a great exercise for us. You can never make all of Twitter happy.
No.
It is impossible.
That one person was like, he is not funny.
Like,
not
funny, charming, good, funny, should be executed on television. Funny, charming, nice, charismatic.
Throw him in jail.
Cut off his hands and make him watch. What?
And looking back, these texts are coming in, or tweets from February 1st of 2020. I believe we were all getting ready for the next day Super Bowl.
Well, it also explains why he was free.
I don't remember watching that because I was in Fort Lauderdale partying with a bunch of Chiefs fans getting ready for the Super Bowl the next day. So I was not in front of a TV watching Saturday Night Live with J.J. Watt.
That's too bad because all the drugs you were on, man, I bet SNL would have been funny.
I went and I walked right up to people and I was trying to find one weed. Nobody would sell me one weed.
Did you eat all those Tic Tacs they gave you, though?
Yes.
Freshen up your breath?
Yep. And I just grabbed every single drink people gave me randomly.
Good. I think that probably
let
worked
me
out
just
for you.
drink that. Just shots everywhere.
It was good that you sobered up by Super Bowl 57.
Yes, I took more shots than I do in a pickup game, and that is a lot. Couple of tweets that came in earlier in the show said Kurt Lightning could be a foe in Cobra Kai.
That's what I was thinking. Is
Like
there was
one.
sort of a loose parody of Karate Kid there. He could be a Cobra Kai villain for sure.
Yep. Another tweet comes in. Kurt Lightning had me LOL to the point where my daughter left the living room every skip before Weekend Update had me dying. When he just out of nowhere just punches the guy.
It was good. It's funny, man.
That's my, there you go. You got me. That's my comedy. I laughed out loud a few times in the show. I definitely laughed out loud in The American Girl. I probably shouldn't have, but I did. I laughed out loud.
It's a comedy show. You're supposed to laugh. I'm glad that you're laughing.
I laughed out loud in the NFL players giving back. I laughed out loud with that one.
I still am a little bummed that didn't make it. I know everybody is,
Ridiculous.
but like it just really should have made the cut.
Ridiculous. The franchise tag deadline tomorrow, 3 o'clock. 4 players have been franchise tagged so far, with 1 player in the last 30 minutes. The news coming out that he has been tagged. Tony Pollard, the 4th player, running back for the Cowboys, has been franchise tagged. That goes along with Josh Jacobs, who I believe was the first franchise tag of this franchise tag season, and then Evan Ingram, and then Deron Payne. The running backs. So 2 of the 4 running backs that have been franchise tags. How you feel about that, Josh? You excited about 2 of the 4?
1 year deals. Honestly, it could be worse.
Yep.
I believe
a first rounder for like 4 or 5 years that may not even see year 4 that might be traded. You about that one?
And that is hurtful. But I will say that if there's any team I can trust to manage the running back cap situation smartly, it is definitely the Cowboys and the Raiders. So I think that'll work out just fine.
The running back number is 10.1. So Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard, $10.1 million for their cap number. Evan Ingram is a tight end, 11.345. And then Deron Payne is a defensive tackle, 18.9. You see the difference in the value of positions in the NFL, and the defensive tackle is almost twice as much as the running back. Deron Payne, essentially 19, and Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs, 10.1. And they already have Ezekiel Elliott under contract, do the Dallas Cowboys.
And if memory serves, there's not a whole lot they can do about it.
They would save like $5 million with
on
the cap.
A lot more than the 5. What are the numbers there?
Yeah, so Zeke's cap hit this year is 16.7, 11.8 dead money. So is what they would have to take on.
Goodness, man. And he signed this contract a while ago.
So if Tony Pollard plays on the franchise tag and they do not release Zeke, they would have 2 running backs making 26.8 cap hit.
That might be more than Mahomes makes this year.
Yeah, when Mahomes' salary cap is redone.
If they spread it out as much as they can, that might not be completely true, but it's pretty close to being in the ballpark.
I think March 19th is the date that the Chiefs have to figure out Patrick Mahomes' contract. So by March 19th, we'll have a pretty good idea if Tony Pollard is still on a franchise tag and has not signed a long-term deal. At that point, $26.8 million would be allocated for the Cowboys to running backs. Woo. And you know what? Makes sense because Kevin McCarthy is already out and said, quote, I've been where Kellen has been after, Kellen Moore was fired and he's going to, take over play calling duties. I've been where Kellen has been.
I sorry to cut you off. I know Kevin McCarthy had a really busy couple of weeks, but Mike McCarthy is definitely the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Who's Kevin McCarthy?
He's the Speaker of the House now.
Is he?
Yeah, he sure is.
Sure. I'll take your word for it.
There was a lot going on and all of that. He kind of wasn't for a while.
I'll take your word for it, man.
He lost more games in a row than the winless Lions. I don't think that's true. He went 0-13. No, it was a whole deal.
Mike or Kevin McCarthy? You tell me, who said this? Did Mike McCarthy or Kevin McCarthy say this?
Both of them sound like they're going pretty conservative.
I've been where...
Boom!
Okay. That's all right. What's the political term when they use football in there? It's like the
nuclear football.
Nuclear football. I
hope both the Cowboys and the House are not having any conversations about the nuclear football.
So Mike or Kevin McCarthy said, I've been where Kellen has been. Kellen wants to light up the scoreboard, but I want to run the damn ball so I can rest my defense. I think when you're a coordinator, but you're in charge of the offense. Being a head coach and being a play caller, you're a little more in tune. So you've got to franchise tag Tony Pollard with Zeke already making 16.7 because you're going to run the damn ball to rest your defense.
Sorry, I was waiting for a link to load. I clicked it. It didn't load at first, and then it did eventually pull back up because I have a crazy conspiracy theory on that from Mike McCarthy.
Yes.
This is from Ed Werder on March 1st. At 45%, the Cowboys' design rush rate in 2022 was the highest for a Mike McCarthy coach team, and the first time one of his teams has been top 10 in design rush percentage. So from at Cowboys Stats, just some great analytic stuff on Twitter, and also just great Cowboys commentary.
Amazing.
Tweeted, it's not just weird that McCarthy is doing this, given his past tendencies in Green Bay, which is to throw the football a lot. Mm-hmm. Presumably it's what his bosses want. The weirder thing to me is how much ownership he's taking of it. I think Mike McCarthy right now is being a puppet for what Jerry Jones wants this offense to be. Run the ball, play some defense. Mike McCarthy hasn't been that grouchy old man. That's not who he has been historically. Think about it.
McCarthy.
My Kevin McCarthy comparison, of course, is that... Never mind. Go ahead, Jason.
Mike McCarthy, according to that, had the most design runs of his career and then says... Kellen Moore was just trying to light up the scoreboard playing like arena football, and I want to run the damn ball.
As opposed to the fact that he had Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
That's right.
Where they threw the football plenty.
What does that say about Dak Prescott, though? That we don't need to throw the football. We got to run the ball to rest the defense because passing the ball is not helping us rest our defense. Also, when you score a lot of points, that helps out the defense, too. Makes the other team one-dimensional. I'm just saying, there's complimentary football. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 W.
And I was thinking about the Kurt Lightning character from Travis Kelce in Saturday Night Live. It does have a very Cobra Kai, Terry Silver feel to it. He would be a great character as part of the new Cobra Kai, or at least what was in the previous season before, no spoilers. Some other things happen. But Travis Kelce in that skit really had that Terry Silver vibe to him. Not Kreese, but just a different vibe. Maybe even worse than Kreese. He definitely had that.
There's definitely some other sort of character. I'm trying to remember what exactly it is sparking for me. But just like the perhaps well-meaning, if not under-equipped sort of trainer in a field like that. I feel like just sort of the motivational, getting Travis Kelce to go, oh yeah, kind of some pro wrestling kind of energy. I think unlocking that for him is going to be huge for his second career.
Kelce did do a Mahomes impression.
He did, and it was okay.
I thought he was going to stay away from that. I'm here. I'm here.
I was also nervous when they went to the Super Bowl audio clips and everything. And I felt like could have been kind of a crutch. They didn't go to it for too much. Just the one joke. More.
And then the catching Kelce.
And then the catching Kelce bit. Different footage, that's good. I thought the Mahomes impression was okay.
Yeah.
It seems like if Mahomes wanted to be involved in the show, he certainly could have been.
I think so.
And that he probably was, didn't want to be the cameo to Creed Humphrey was the cameo, right? Like that's the level of like teammate. He's trying to elevate a teammate as opposed to having a bigger star come in and kind of trump it,
Out of all of the teammates of Travis Kelce, offense, defense, whatever,
I was surprised.
Creed Humphrey being and I'm not saying he didn't play the role perfectly.
He did.
He absolutely played the role perfectly.
Nailed it.
And maybe that's why they went with Creed, is because of that particular role.
Yeah, but
it's a surprise if you said the Chiefs will have one player make a cameo during all of the skits. All of the skits, there'll be one Chiefs player that makes a cameo. It would have been a long time before I landed on Creed Humphrey.
Orlando Brown would have been my pick off the offensive line. He's comfortable in front of a camera.
Yeah. I would have guessed Mahomes.
Mahomes would have made a lot of sense.
Mahomes would have been the first guess. Or Chris Jones. Frank Clark going off script would have been amazing.
Ooh, that would have been really good.
Ad-lib this part. Frank, here's your line. Ad-lib a little bit.
Joe Tooney should have been there to travel back in time to warn them to include the NFL Gives Back skit.
Travis Kelce playing the video game would have just been programming Joe Tooney. We'll talk some
Ready
football
to change
next.
your life? Get a smile you'll love to the moon and back. Expert orthodontist Dr. Moon and his friendly team use the latest technology to make your journey fast, precise, and affordable. They invite patients of all ages to experience warm orthodontic care in a family-friendly atmosphere, serving all ages in Olathe and Overland Park while offering the latest technology in orthodontic care. It's Moon Orthodontics. Revolutionize your smile with a free consultation. Visit moonortho.com.
Hey, this is Les Norman, host of the Breaking the Norm Show. I want to invite you to join me Saturdays at 7 a.m. on Sports Radio 810 and Tuesdays on ESPN Kansas City 94.5 FM for uplifting and positive sports stories and a whole lot more. We can all use a boost to our day, so why not be motivated and inspired by the stories of the good side of sports, entertainment, and life? There's a whole lot of good out there. Every week, now in our 12th year, it's Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City.
March means nonstop college hoops action. Join the...
I may have spent the break making the American Girl doll Travis Kelce my new Twitter profile picture. So I may or may not have done that.
It's a great look if you did in fact do that.
I'm not sure. Jeremy Fowler at the Combine had these news and notes nuggets from the Combine, and he had a specific one about the Chiefs. I'll just read through it. Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs will have a difficult time keeping several free agents. They are bracing to lose receiver Mecole Hardman, who should have a sneaky good market despite playing just 8 games last season. Some teams believe he will hit a pretty good number on a per-year average. Safety Juan Thornhill should also do very well. Some teams are looking at him as the number 2 safety, a viable option for those who can't afford Jesse Bates III. The expectation is the Chiefs will franchise tag offensive tackle Orlando Brown Jr. and attempt to re-sign receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, but that will cost them. Some teams have running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire on their radar as a potential trade option, though I don't believe Kansas City is actively shopping him. It could be more of a, quote, we will listen situation. Those are the notes from Jeremy Fowler from the Combine. The thing that sort of catches your eye first is the Clyde Edwards-Helaire comment. Mm-hmm. That teams have him on their radar, but he's not on their radar because the Chiefs are shopping them, according to Jeremy Fowler and what his belief is. It's here's a running back that the Chiefs may be shopping, so let's keep that in mind if we are going to be thinking about a potential replacement or bringing somebody in at running back, that Clyde Edwards-Helaire may be available. And the Chiefs would listen. Mm-hmm. Hey, we want to trade for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay. What are you offering? What's the savings for Edwards-Helaire if they trade him? It's like $800.
If they trade him, it's more substantial. I'll get you the exact ones here in a second.
It's like $1 million, right? It's
if they cut him outright, they save $865,000. Mm-hmm. If they trade him, even pre-June 1st, they save $2 million of his $3.5 million cap hit. So my quick cut to the chase is that cutting Clyde does not make sense.
Nope.
He's better than most third running backs you're going to find, and you need a third running back. If you can get something back in a trade, though, to take some of that money off, fine with me.
If you get a late third, or late day 3.
I do a late third so fast.
Late day 3. 7th rounder probably for Edwards-Helaire. So you would essentially be getting a 7th rounder and $2 million in cap space for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Would you take that deal? I would.
I probably would, but it means that draft pick has to go into a different running back, and now you've freed up like $1 million in cap space, right? I mean, maybe a little more than that. But you are going to pay out of that to get somebody else out on the roster. They probably draft someone late anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm good with all that.
But see, that to me, I
wonder how sour the relationship is at this point, too.
When you first started there, I thought you were going down the route of, you switched there at the end to a point I agree with. But at the beginning of your Clyde Edwards-Helaire thought, I thought you were going down the route of, you put a first-round draft pick in him. Are you willing to wait? And I'm like, that's sunk cost fallacy right there.
No. I'm just saying that you're going to have to. It's a good you're going to have to use what you've gotten from the trade to to fill that roster spot still. So it's just that's what it is for me. The closest that I could get to if I had to reverse engineer a sunk cost fallacy for you, I would say, this dude's been in the offense now for a while, and you would think that that's only going to make you more versatile and more able to do more things. And I do think, to some extent, having the guy who has played a large role for you these last couple of years to be your third running back, to be someone who can step in a variety of situations, his ceiling is lower, but his versatility should be there. I think there's some value in that. Is that worth $1 million? I really don't know. I don't know how the Chiefs view him. I also, if I wanted to get a little spooky, I would say that Jerick McKinnon had his best stretch, December? And then it was a little quieter after that. He was great in pass pro still. He's older. You don't want to rely on Jerick McKinnon to carry your offense for 6 weeks next year.
Well, do you then draft another running back there?
In the first round.
And so then
trade up.
You draft let's say you spend one of those 7th rounders on a
or pick a day 3 pick whenever it makes
like
sense.
That.
Sure.
Even if it's like a 6th rounder, and if we just look at the cap hit for a 6th rounder this year, like the Chiefs have pick number 198. That cap hit is going to be $750,000 for the Chiefs. They save $2 million if they trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So you're sitting at +2 $2 million.
Yep.
and an extra pick.
Yep.
Let's say they take the running back as a 6th rounder.
Use that 6th or 7th.
So now you're looking at 1.25.
Pretty much.
And another running back, but you don't know what that running back is going to be. You can't just say, well, this guy's going to be Isaiah Pacheco. This guy's going to be as good as as somebody else.
I think it depends on the traits too. What are if Clyde's not on the team tomorrow, what are the Chiefs looking for in the running back room? And the reason that I, as the person who may have hated that pick the most in real time, if anyone that I could personally find, still have to get tased because of it. It was really a bad pick for me.
Yeah, that you out of all people really hate that pick.
It was a tough one, and I'm gonna have to pay that bet off hopefully while he's still in a Chiefs uniform, but we'll find out. If you are thinking, hey, we're gonna need somebody who can spell Jerick McKinnon, not Jerick, but who can step in for Jerick McKinnon, maybe they're gonna want to get another guy on a rookie deal in there anyway. Do you let McKinnon walk? Keep Clyde and draft somebody. Do you trade Clyde, bring back McKinnon and draft somebody and hopefully use a little bit of that space? I just think it's going to ultimately end up being a draft pick and a million number that is so inconsequential in the grand scheme of it all that it's the only thing I believe for sure is that this is going to end with sort of a fart noise and not some grand fireworks.
Well, the part that you would also that we wouldn't know.
He also was really useful earlier in the season. Like he was catching passes like crazy early in the year, which is it feels like a million years ago.
The part that we wouldn't know, and it would take, Andy Reid, Brett Veach, the people inside the facilities, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the relationship with the organization.
Yep.
Is he still cool with being a Chief? Would he rather be traded? Again, it's not the end-all, be-all, but he did skip the parade to do a fashion show in New York.
And on the inverse, you talking to him, he thought he was going to play in the Super Bowl. He was active and then a healthy scratch.
And he also thought he should have been activated earlier than that. I'm reading between the lines on that, but when I said the question was essentially like, was this the timetable that you could activate? You're looking at the Super Bowl. He goes, it wasn't my timetable. And then he tweeted out about, hey, don't look, I'm healthy.
Been running for a while. All of that.
I'm healthy. It's not my choice. He wanted to play earlier, and he never played again for the Chiefs. Once he went on the IR, he never played again for the Chiefs. And he wasn't happy about that. And then he didn't show up to the parade. Is he willing to be a happy camper and be the third running back again if they re-sign Jerick McKinnon and bring, which I would love for them to bring back Jet? If they go into the season with Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon as their 1-2, is Edwards-Helaire perfectly fine playing for the Chiefs in his final year of the contract and his final year as a Chief, being the third running back? Would he rather go somewhere else? The Chiefs have complimented him a lot this last year on what kind of teammate he was. Mm-hmm. That even though Isaiah Pacheco was coming along as a rookie and was going to essentially be the starter, and Pacheco said when he was drafted, I got to take a grown man's job, that grown man was Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yep.
And he took that grown man's job.
Yep.
And from all indications, Edwards-Helaire behind the scenes has been nothing but a good teammate to Pacheco, has been nothing but supportive. In the Super Bowl, he's in street clothes. Mm-hmm. He's in civilian clothing, and he's over there pumped up with Pacheco after he scores a touchdown. Like things like that say, okay, he doesn't seem like he would be a malcontent. Mm-hmm. But would he rather go somewhere else? Would it be better for all parties involved for Edwards-Helaire to say, look, I'm not demanding a trade, but if something comes up and there's an opportunity for me to go to a team that I might actually play, which would give me an opportunity as a free agent to make a little money. Because if I'm the third back here on the final contract, I ain't getting nothing next offseason. So maybe a trade and I can get more run, get more play with that particular team. I'd be open for it. Not demanding a trade, just saying if that were to come up, this is what I'm thinking right now. I don't think the Chiefs would be blowing smoke about what they thought of Pacheco as a teammate if they didn't feel like that was actually true. You can say it away without throwing them under the bus, and without going out of your way to giving praise like they did.
Yeah.
So I don't think he would be a malcontent. That would just be somebody that starts to sour the locker room because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is pissed off about his role. I think if he's still on the team this year, he knows what his role is. You go into the season understanding your role.
And maybe it even could be, and this is funny because it just goes back to the draft conversations, maybe it even is a spot where he and McKinnon are kind of the twos, if you will, right? But the funny thing with Edwards-Helaire is that so much of the pre-draft conversation about him was what he can do out of the backfield as a pass catcher. And we have seen some of that, him specifically running routes out of the backfield and being pretty good at it. But the other thing that was kind of sold about him from Brett Veach in particular was that you could leave him on the field all 3 downs. And that way the defense never knew what to expect based off your personnel, who your running back was, because, and we saw the Chiefs even have to do some off-speed stuff to this end later in the season, and it started working. For the most part, when Pacheco was out there earlier in the year, they were running the ball. And for the most part, when McKinnon was out there, he was catching it or he was blocking for a pass, right?
That's right.
So you have the hint you're giving the defense based on your personnel. You can still use that to your own advantage if you want to kind of twist it that way to where you put Pacheco out there and then throw the ball to him. And again, when that started, it was working because teams weren't really expecting that. But for Clyde, he really has been like the first down, second down guy. It's why the Ronald Jones signing was kind of interesting at the time. It was like, oh, maybe the two of them are kind of competing for relatively similar roles because the Chiefs have not made Clyde their third down back, despite the fact that he's a good pass catcher. He's not the pass blocker, though, that McKinnon is. Clyde's a smaller running back and all of that. I wonder if they see a role for him to go be the actual third down running back who can be out there doing much of anything in that third down role, where, again, I now divorcing him from his draft slot. I'm telling you, I think there's something useful there. He can be a useful player there.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about. His best bet to have a nice second contract is probably to be somewhere else next year. Maybe it's in Kansas City if they don't bring back Jerick McKinnon. But whatever it ends up being, it just feels unpleasant right now, which training camp's a long time away. They can hash all that out in the meantime. But there's been a lot of noise for a relationship that didn't seem this fraught even when he went on IR.
I want to talk about the wide receiver, something else that Jeremy Fowler said in this the news and notes from the Combine. He says, the expectation is the Chiefs will franchise tag offensive tackle Orlando Brown and attempt to re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster, but that will cost them.
Yep.
Also mentions that they're bracing to lose receiver Mecole Hardman, who should have a sneaky good market despite playing just 8 games last year. Some teams believe he will hit a pretty good number on a per-year average. I've wondered what the market would be for Mecole Hardman after the injury and after the surgery. I have felt for a while that this was the last year for Mecole Hardman. When Christian Kirk got the money last year, I thought, well, this is definitely the last year for Mecole Hardman because I think he might be able to get a Christian Kirk type deal. Can he get $19 million per year? The Chiefs are not going to pay Mecole Hardman $19 million per year. It's one of 2 reasons why Mecole Hardman wouldn't be on the Chiefs. Either he was so bad, then the Chiefs would say you'd let him walk, or he was good enough to where somebody's going to say, yeah, we're going to bring him in and be our playmaker. We need somebody like that that's got the speed and will pay $18, $19 million. And so it'll be priced out from him being a Chief. Signing Juju is an interesting one because what's the contract for him? I'm okay with bringing Juju Smith-Schuster back. Perfectly fine with bringing Juju Smith-Schuster back. I'd like to see Juju Smith-Schuster on the Chiefs next year. Spotrac has the market value for Juju. 4 years, 58.7, essentially 14.6 annual average salary.
Give me that again. 4 years and what?
58.6, essentially 14.5, right around 14.6, 14.7 annual average value. The 14.7 is more palatable than ever giving Juju 4 years. I can't give Juju Smith-Schuster, who's already said he has bad knees, he has old knees, and while he only missed 1 game this year, so that should be pointed out. This is not Juju that missed 12 games a year ago. Right. He missed only 1 game this year. But didn't it feel like there was a little Sammy to it? It kind of felt like there was, and the concussion, not his fault. But it felt like there was a little Sammy to the, is he going to play? Is he not going to play this week? Okay, he left this game early because of the knee. He had mentioned that if it wasn't for the training staff, that he probably wouldn't have played in the Super Bowl. And he did, and had the 7 receptions and 60 yards and the move on at the end of the game that got the holding penalty. I'd be fine bringing Juju Smith-Schuster back, but at max 2 years. I can't give him. I mean, a 3-year contract would mean that you can get out of it, but I'm more of 2 years like MVS to where you could get out of it after 1 year in case Juju, like his knee, just gets worse as the season progresses. And you're like, yeah, we can't go on with it because, he's every other week we wonder if he's going to play and how much is he going to play. And then the issue with Sammy Watkins oftentimes was, okay, Sammy Watkins is going to play the first quarter. And then he re-aggravates something and now he's out. And you just activated Sammy Watkins and somebody is deactive or inactive because, you thought Sammy Watkins was going to play and he didn't. I worry about that with Juju, but I think Juju has a role on this team, but what's it going to cost? And you're already $11 million deep in MVS, and they may go draft somebody, but then the wide receiver market. Like, what are you doing there? Like, you can't have the group of receivers that they had against the Bengals and expect the Chiefs to be successful week in and week out.
Yeah, and we can get to the sort of the draft class receiver stuff later as well, but there's not, and this is usually the case in the NFL, but there's not an easy solution. And the thing with Juju, and you mentioned already, this is just sort of like an implicit, like 101 thing everyone's got to know. The number of years on a deal is always going to be a little bit inflated. We just got some details on Derek Carr's deal we can also talk about. Really the guarantees are what determines the actual length of the deal, and that's going to vary. I wouldn't be terribly opposed to giving Juju something that looks like 2 years that are absolutely functionally guaranteed, and then that third where maybe there's a little bit of dead money if that's the price you have to pay. Because I remember talking about this on Sound Off right after he was signed this last offseason, and there being some concern about, his injuries and his health and all of that. On a one-year deal, that does not scare me. It was an incentive-laden one-year deal. I was totally for it. I was not concerned about sort of the weird cobbling of injuries that have gotten him in the past. But when you start looking at that more long-term investment, then yeah, it certainly becomes concerning. The issue is, if not Juju, who, what, when, where, why, and how. Like, all of those things become glaring questions for where the offense stands. 2 years ago, they had Juju in their sights and didn't get him, and it hurt their team. Like, it was bad for the Chiefs to not have gotten Juju 2 off seasons ago now. If he's not on this team this year, I don't know that they win the Super Bowl. That's a funny game to play because how many of those guys are there really until you get to Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones and all that. But when you talk about the Juju in the way that Andy Reid's talked about him as being like the guy off of Kelsey, right, opposite him, to take some of that attention and to be able to win some one-on-ones with his body and just be there for Mahomes at He had 101 targets in the regular season, 78 catches, nearly 1,000 yards, and a lot of that was just sort of workmanlike. It was just Mahomes, 3rd and 8, Juju for 12. Like, it just sort of felt like that was something that was in the rotation pretty frequently. And unless you think Sky Moore is ready to be that guy, which that could be your case, but that's probably what your case is going to have to be. That's not who MVS is, just stylistically. It's not who Justin Watson is. It's not who Kadarius Toney is. And any of the guys you could draft, probably not them either. So as much as I love the Noah Gray 2 tight end set talk, I love the idea of getting Jody Fortson involved. I love the idea of them actually drafting a tight end this year. None of those guys are going to give you the single season impact that Juju did. And I think somebody else is going to be willing to pay him. Imagine being a team that has one pretty good receiving option and a young quarterback, particularly on a rookie deal. I would be hurting myself to go sign Juju, even if I thought he was only going to give me 12 games, because, man, that would be valuable for a young quarterback.
They've got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and he played 17 games. 20. I mean, he played every game this year. He did not miss a game. He is an interesting conundrum. Because you can save $7 million. He's 11 against the cap, but he's 4 if you cut him. So you can save, which is what I talked about Juju, like if it was an MVS type contract. It's a 2-year deal, but you could get out of it after 1 year. I don't know that Juju's going to sign that contract. Somebody, like you said, with the weak wide receiver market and maybe a weaker overall depth in wide receiver draft class, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, those guys with the Chiefs that are free agents probably get a little bit more than maybe the Chiefs would be willing to spend. In fact, Spotrac, while they give the market value of the numbers that I gave you of 4 years and 58.6, the calculated market value based on comparable players and free agency gives him a 4 years 58.6 and the base 4 years 63 with a $15.7 million annual average value. So about $1 million more. Annual average value based on these are the comparable players. This is the free agent market. What his market value is probably 14.6. This year, he might get an extra $1 million per year. Something to keep in mind. MVS is an interesting one because as much as we talk about what Juju was to Patrick Mahomes, and a guy who had 100 targets this year and 70 receptions, 78 receptions, had a catch percentage of 77.2 this year. Marquez Valdes-Scantling played every game, and he had 82 targets, and he had 49 receptions, and a catch percentage of about 54%.
Which is historically what he's been, by the way. Like, that was him in Green Bay, too.
Yes. And, you know, I discussed it coming into this year with MVS that, okay, well, if he's a guy that doesn't run a very intricate route tree, that he's more of the you go deep guy and Aaron Rodgers is going to attempt to throw the ball deep, yeah, the catch percentage is going to be low on that because you're throwing the ball 30 yards downfield. The percentage chance of that being a completion is lower than here's a little 10-yard out, which is what more Juju's route tree would be, of over the middle, out routes, posts, things like that. But you are talking about a guy that it didn't really feel like outside of one game, and that was a crucial game in the AFC Championship, that he and Mahomes were ever really on the same page. And that's a full season where it didn't feel like they were ever really on the same page. So is that $7 million? If you're trying to make a decision, do you say, we'd rather take that $7 million and give it to Juju on a 2-year deal and move on from MVS, and maybe it didn't work, and then you've got Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and Juju, maybe somebody in the draft. And I know people are excited about Justin Ross. I am not counting on Justin Ross at all. Until I see Justin Ross in a Chiefs uniform in an actual game, I will talk a little bit more about Justin Ross. But I am not going to go into the season going, okay, they've got Sky Moore, they've got Toney, they've got MVS, they've got Justin Ross. He was an undrafted free agent, and then he wasn't healthy enough to play this last year, and they put him on IR early. That ain't somebody I'm relying on. So I would be like, the MVS thing is really tricky to me because I don't feel like they were ever on the same page. I don't feel like the whole different route tree that they were going to look for him to be a part of that was different than Green Bay. I don't think it's there to make $11 million if Juju, that had a 77% catch rate, is looking at getting 15.
Well, so I've got 3 things on MVS that I think is curious. One is I'm interested if you're willing to pay for the almosts. Yeah. Because to your point, there were a lot of times when they were almost there, almost had it. And I'm genuinely asking, do you think that Patrick Mahomes, another offseason, another year with MVS, that they convert half of those almosts into successes? If so, we're talking about home runs.
Yeah.
I don't know that I love that bet, but I think it's something you'd kind of be gambling on.
Mahomes is a part of their conversations. We know that. Brett Veach said last week on the Pro Football Talk podcast to Florio and Chris Sims that before he left for the Combine, Patrick Mahomes texted Brett Veach a number of players he wanted him to keep his eye on. Don't you have things to do, Patrick?
No, he's busy.
He texts
scouting.
Brett Veach, here are some players I'd like you to keep an eye on, or players you're looking at.
I got to get that list.
Yeah, I know, right? I'd love to get that list.
So there's my almost question on MVS.
Right, and just to answer that real quick, the almost to me would be a part of Patrick Mahomes being in that conversation.
Yeah, does he think those almost are coming?
Do you think the almost are coming?
Absolutely.
And if you do, let's roll.
Yep.
And if you're honest and you say, I don't know, we just never clicked, couldn't get it going for whatever reason, I mean, at that point, you got to make a decision of what's best for the club. And if the almost you don't believe are going to turn into actual receptions to where you're talking about 81 targets and 55 receptions, that's 13 more receptions. That could give you another 100 yards, 120, a couple more touchdowns there.
And those were not, to be clear, those were not all MVS mistakes. There were at least a handful of those. You go, Mahomes had them, and he didn't put the ball where it needed to be.
Yep.
So that's one element of it.
I want to get to 2 and 3 on the other side of the break.
Okay, let's do it. I've got 2 more. They're not that in depth. We can talk about them a little bit. We can sink in.
I want you to be able to expand on those.
We can expand coming up next.
We can hear on the Athletic Football Show them talking about wide receivers or tight ends, and the Chiefs have 26 and a half hours to place the franchise tag on Orlando Brown. We'll see what they do. We're expecting that to be the case. Probably could come down any second. The news that they're going to franchise tag Orlando Brown. We take a timeout. We come back. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, the Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. Nick Schaefer, KSHB 41. He will be our guest coming up at 1 o'clock. We got some Learn, Funniest, Best coming your way, and get into a number of these other topics and things going on around the NFL. Still want to talk some baseball today. I'm trying not to get overly excited about Franmil Reyes. I keep talking to myself.
Tweet about that, yeah.
Just temper your enthusiasm, temper your excitement, stop,
Is it working?
calm down, take deep breaths. Yeah, it did help. I had the brown paper bag that I was breathing into when he hits one, 480 feet. And then the first inning, laces one into right center to drive in Bobby Witt. And then he talks about on the broadcast with the Dodgers that he had a number of different places and options to go to. Did you see this
no
quote from or hear the quote from Franmil Reyes? I mean, he said, let me find the quote here first.
Sounds like it's going to be hot and heavy.
I know. Franmil Reyes said that he had multiple of the same offers on the table before signing with the Royals. But his agent told him to go with the Royals because Zumwalt, Saylor, and the Royals hitting coaches will, quote, get you right and back on track.
Wow.
It's a hell of a compliment, right?
Reputation changing pretty fast, huh?
In a year?
Yeah, it really is. That's kind of cool.
He's got multiple offers on the table, and his agent says go to Kansas City.
Hey, they got guys who will fix you.
These guys will fix you and get you right, which makes me a little more excited if he's like, yes, this is what I'm believing in this. They're going to get me right. And that's why I chose the Royals over some other teams.
Which also means that he's a guy who knows he needs that. That's
exactly.
not always an easy thing to do when you've got some big league time.
And here I am breathing into a brown paper bag again.
I need a bag.
Brown paper bag. So he may be the opening day DH. Like, I think there's a decent chance of Franmil Reyes.
Got my headphone bag. Why is the can somebody text in, please? I don't want to Google it. Can someone text in why the brown paper bag thing is a thing? Like, is that about...
For like a panic attack,
is that about
breathe in that
less oxygen? Like you're just breathing
hyperventilate?
in what you're exhaling? That doesn't seem very good.
I don't know. So there you go. Sure. Franmil Reyes.
My headphone bag.
We'll talk some baseball, though. I want to get into some other things with the Royals. But you had point number 1 on MVS in the almost.
Point number 2.
Point number 2, and then point number 3.
Point number 2 is something else we've talked about with MVS. Just kind of trying to, we're talking about what his value is. He's got a pretty good sized cap hit. What's the Chiefs' future at wide receiver? And the one thing that I think is a very difficult thing to put a value tag on is the cost of gravity. Like, we get it all for free. But in the NFL, it's expensive, right? Like, having the gravity of Tyreek Hill is a part of that offense that they wanted to get back with MVS. Tyreek Hill was a do-it-all, right? Like, the reason that he was so valuable isn't because he did one thing great. It's because he was great at, like, most of the things you want a receiver to be great at. It's the deep shots. It's the backfield motion. It's all of that. But the Chiefs went into this last season trying to get guys who could check off the boxes of things that Tyreek Hill vacated when they traded him. And some of that downfield gravity, it's the respect of the safeties over the top, but it's also, I mean, we're talking about small movements where you have to give MVS a level of respect that you don't have to extend to a Justin Watson, right? Like when that's your drop-off, is that a $7, $8, $9, $10 million difference? I don't know. My inclination, if you took the names off of it, would be no. Would be to say I'd rather have just a fast dude who can push downfield, let him do that, hope a safety bites, and if they ever don't respect him, you hit him. But a lot easier said than done, right? So and I just don't think there's another guy on this roster who they see having that impact, because if they did, he would have gotten probably more run, and maybe we'd see them move on from an MVS type. So unless you like Watson in that role, which I think would be tough.
And the question they would have is, there's somebody in the second or third round that they feel like they can get that can fill that role, or a free agent that maybe isn't a big name, because Marquez Valdes-Scantling wasn't talked a whole lot around here before they signed him. And like, okay, well, there's your deep threat to make up for Tyreek Hill in that one element Tyreek Hill brought to the table, because you're going to have to piecemeal this thing together. You're going to have to build it. It's going to be the sum of the parts. Is going to have to be as good as Tyreek Hill rather than just the one player.
And doing that with a rookie option, I could see them drafting someone that sort of dictates that you were just a year early on the MVS contract, right? I think this has always been kind of a 2-year deal, and then we'll see next offseason, because the idea of them drafting someone who's going to play, or let's just say, imagine the Chiefs drafting a wide receiver who gets 81 targets next year. That seems very unlikely to me based off of how rookie receivers have gone, generally speaking, under Andy Reid. But tying in 2 and 3 together here, I saw a tweet. I had pulled up Matt Harmon's old reception perceptions showing the route chart of MVS in 2021 in Green Bay. And I saw a tweet from Seth that says, he's like a bizarro world Juju Smith-Schuster.
MVS?
Now, MVS. Based off the routes they run and then don't run.
Okay.
They just kind of do the opposite things. Like, you get your 9 routes in your corners and some posts from MVS, and Juju's doing all the stuff in kind of in the middle ranges, right? Some of the shorter things. So here's the question that I definitely don't have an answer to. Does MVS's value change? And more specifically, does his value lessen if they don't bring back Juju?
Interesting. That's
Because
that's counterintuitive.
You've got 2 totally different types of receivers.
Yeah.
It is totally counterintuitive. But you have 2 different types of receivers who are here to do 2 different types of jobs. And if you say Juju's not here doing this thing, well, are we going to try to find a Juju replacement? Could Sky Moore step in the Juju's role, and then MVS is your stabilizing factor, and he's even more valuable without Juju? Or do you go, hey, you know what? This sort of sum of the part strategy from last year, time to start overhauling that, because we're going to rely. We think Sky Moore can do more. We think Kadarius Toney can do more. We think we're going to find somebody else in free agency. I don't know if it's Adam Thielen or if it's someone in the draft, an acquisition that lets you kind of overhaul that again. But it's a lot of change. It's a lot of change at that position a second time. We saw how hard that was for Mahomes this year. He won the MVP, but still, I do think that would be something that would be hard to ask Mahomes to do again. I am incredibly curious about all the moving parts and how the teeth of those gears fit together, because I do think this year had a strategy behind it.
What's the value they can put on it in millions or a cap hit to not have a complete overhaul at wide receiver again?
And with MVS, let's say it's team options, on the deals. That keeps you flexible, but it also means you can keep the guy for the value you agreed on the year prior. With Juju, they're going to have to make a long-term decision while they've got MVS in short-term kind of check-in mode. So I really think that they've got a lot of different options a lot of different routes they could take, but the ones that don't include MVS and Juju are clearly the most concerning paths that are on the table because there's the most unknown there.
Is Marquez Valdes-Scantling, is his potential the non-Juju and other wide receiver games of what he was able to do? So that being against the Bengals.
Right, is the AFC Championship game repeatable?
Is that a potential of, well, yes, if you don't have Juju or some of these other guys?
It's a great question.
This is what Marquez Valdes-Scantling could do in the offense. 8 targets, 6 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown. Well, that's a 75% catch rate. Well,
the easiest thing Mahomes had, maybe the only thing Mahomes had at that point in the game.
Yeah. The flip side is Juju missed the Chargers game after the Jags. Mm-hmm. And in that game, Marquez Valdes-Scantling had 4 targets, 1 reception for 18 yards. Juju was not fully back against the Rams. He was still recovering from that concussion. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling had 4 receptions, 56 yards. 4 receptions on 5 targets. So you've got one game where Juju did not play, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling was non-existent, essentially. Mm-hmm. You've got another game where Juju was out there, but wasn't like the main target, and MVS played pretty well. And you've got another game where there was really nobody there. Yep. I mean, you had Marcus Kemp, you're going 3 tight ends, you're trying to do anything, and MVS stepped up and played huge in that game and is a big reason why they ended up winning.
Yep. Huge.
When you've got guys that go down. McCall Hardman gets injured, Juju gets injured, Kadarius Toney gets injured, and it's, Watson isn't active.
Yeah, right about that.
I mean,
all week.
It was essentially the wide receiver unit right now.
Yep.
Sans Marcus Kemp, who's in Washington.
Right, exactly. They're even thinner now by Marcus Kemp. That's
right.
about the difference.
That's right. It's he and Sky Moore.
Yep.
Is kind of what it was out there. And he goes out there, and even as the only guy outside of Kelsey that they had to focus on, finds a way to get 6 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown, and a couple of massive plays along the way, and makes big catches, big-time catches, which they haven't always been there for Marquez Valdes-Scantling this year, the big catches. It's kind of hit or miss. He'll have some games where he goes up, and it's like, wow, he made an amazing catch. Was it against the against the Bengals on the road. Those 2 big catches down the field. He had 2 receptions for 71 yards. Both of them were contested catches down the field. He made big-time plays in that.
You
he made
see it from him,
big-time
right?
plays
Like, you
against
get
the
it,
Bengals,
you
right?
know?
Yes, you could see why the $11 million makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you see a stretch of games where he has 1 reception, 20 yards, 3 receptions, 26 yards, 2 targets, no receptions, 7 targets, 2 receptions. And you go, how in the hell is that guy going to get $11 million per year? That was a 4-game stretch. 4 games in a row. And in the Super Bowl, he had 1 target. No receptions, 1 target. He goes from 8 targets, 6 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown to getting 1 target in a game in which the Chiefs put 31 points on the board offensively. And can do almost anything they wanted to do. So it is such the high and the low, the Jekyll and the Hyde. The what are you really going to get from MVS? And is it worth $11 million? Or is it worth saving 7 and using that 7, maybe using that 7 and packaging some other money to keep Juju?
Right.
And you lose Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You keep Juju. You draft somebody else. Is there another wide receiver in the free agent market? And you say, here's Juju, insert receiver here, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney. And if people want to throw in Justin Ross down the line,
sure, yeah,
whatever.
He'll
That's
be
fine.
the camp guy.
But those are your 4. Juju, insert, in no particular order. Right. Juju, insert, McCall, or Sky Moore, and Kadarius Toney. Those 4 guys. And if that's how you're starting your year with your wide receivers, I think you could do a whole lot worse than that. But you've got Juju, who's often injured, and Kadarius Toney, who's often injured. Sky Moore, a second-year player, who even in the Super Bowl in game number 20 lined up in the wrong spot, even on his touchdown.
Although it might have been Kelsey that was in the wrong spot, ultimately.
That's a good point. I don't want to say that he did say we were in the wrong formation, but Mahomes looked right.
Yeah.
To send the guy in motion, and Tony was like, no, it's the other side.
Kelsey was right, mentally writing SNL skits. Yeah. He's got to get his head in the game,
so
man.
It might have been Kelsey.
Hollywood
so you know
Kelsey.
What? Since we don't know who was in the wrong spot, I don't want to. I've thought about that. Like they were in the wrong formation, and Mahomes looked right, so that was probably Sky Moore. It might have been Kelsey as to why they were in the wrong formation. Either way, you've got Sky Moore, his 1 touchdown, 1 catch in the Super Bowl, and it was a big time play, or at least it was a big time play call by the Chiefs, and then a rookie. Or somebody that hasn't been around.
Matt Nagy told Peter King Kelsey lined up wrong.
There you go. So
Sky Moore, acquitted.
Kelsey, cut him.
And apparently Andy Reid wanted a timeout on that touchdown before it happened.
He tried to call a timeout.
Hilarious.
And he called the timeout with the, was it Torbert? The backup official that was on the sideline that was just sort of hanging out. He was near Andy Reid, and Andy Reid went over and told him timeout, and he just looked at Andy Reid like, I can't call timeout.
That's not my job. Hey, you guys just scored.
That guy's 20 yards down the field that you need to talk to get a timeout there, buddy. I can't help you.
I can go ahead and transfer your call to the guy 20 yards downfield.
My name's Bennett, and I ain't in it. All right, you can't. I can't help you with that. And luckily,
wait time is currently 14 minutes.
20 yards.
20 yards.
The amount of time, wait time was like 2 seconds at that point.
Right,
because that's how
true.
long you had. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. We'll talk about the Derek Carr contract.
Whew.
Wow.
Oh, hey, you know what he just got? I'll give you a little teaser. No trade clause from the Saints on this deal.
There you go. And we'll also ponder if David Carr will still pick the Raiders to win the West. We'll find out.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
right, so Derek Carr signs a contract with the Saints. And now most people are saying if you're the Jets, it's kind of all or nothing with Aaron Rodgers now. So,
man, out of the darkness into the dark, am I right?
Aaron Rodgers maybe to the Jets, but Derek Carr signs a contract, 4 years, $150 million, $100 million guaranteed, essentially $70 million guaranteed, and a couple of ways of kind of breaking down the contracts. Albert Breer or Andrew Brandt says that it's kind of a 2-year, $60 million contract with another $10 million thrown in because that third year, $10 million becomes guaranteed at the end of the first year. So you're not going to cut him after 1 year. So he's essentially going to make $70 million over 3 years is Derek Carr. But the 4 years, $150 million, you're looking at $35 million per year for 4 years for Derek Carr because he's a true free agent. It's not a franchise tag issue. You don't have to trade for him. It's this guy you can just go and sign somewhere. Kirk Cousins got a lot of money because he was a true free agent and had played a number of years as a starting quarterback. Those guys are pretty rare. Joel Corey was on with the Border Patrol last week, and they asked him, if Mahomes was just a free agent, what would he go for? And he said 4 years, $300 million, $75 million per year, annual average value. And I thought, yeah. He said 4 years, $300 million, fully guaranteed is what, if I was his agent, that's what I would ask for. 4 years, $300 million, fully guaranteed, and he said I would get it. So $75 million per, fully guaranteed for 4 years for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And yes, yeah, I could absolutely see that, which also goes back to the point of the incredible value that the Chiefs are getting with Patrick Mahomes and the discount of drafting him. You've said that before. You get the draft discount, that he's not just a street free agent where you can go and sign him for, however much money you want and get in a bidding war with all these other teams that you don't have to trade for him. And it's just like, okay, here's the value there. $75 million per year is what Patrick Mahomes' open market value would be, according to Joel Corey, which would be twice as much as what the Saints are paying Derek Carr. Kind of makes sense.
Super semantically, that's not really the open market. That's the open market in a salary capped sport.
That's exactly right.
Who's to say what would happen when Jeff Bezos buys the Commanders and then the cap is removed?
Oh.
Patrick Mahomes might be able to buy the Texans. I really don't know.
Think about a bidding war.
I don't want to.
I'm just like,
I don't like this idea.
I love it. That,
Patrick Mahomes open market? No, Jason, no, stop it. I don't have to think about that.
But the bidding war that would be there, and what team would go, bleep it, 100? We'll give him 50% of our cap because he's going to be 80% of our team.
Yeah, so, I don't hate that. I think there's something to that.
And also if you're doing that, you're saying, well, the cap is going to keep going up. So if I'm giving him 50% of what the cap is next year of $220 million, I'm going to have to give him 110. Bleep it. I'm giving him 110, and we'll figure out everything else because the most important part of the equation is done, which is also something Brett Veach said before, that when it comes to their offseason, the most important part of their team and offseason and everything is already taken care of, and that is Patrick Mahomes. The only thing is figuring out how you rearrange the contract to maybe gain a little bit more money here or there where you push some of that money to, but you've already got your quarterback set, ready to go under contract. You're good. There is that is such a head start of all these other teams.
There's no practical way to overpay Patrick Mahomes. It's just impossible. What's interesting here, Timo Risk of PFF tweets out that the Saints decided to give Carr more than twice as much guarantees as the Raiders did a year ago. Like when he was a year younger, the Raiders gave him half as much in terms of guarantees as the Saints just did. And this deal makes sense to me for Carr. I get it. And I don't think it's a horrible deal if the Jets would have given it to Carr. But it's really weird for the Saints, man. Like they might win the division. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. You're the best quarterback in the division. You're probably the best team in the division right now. But they're going to have to cut Jameis and just eat a bunch of dead money like the crab legs. I don't get it, man. It's weird. Let Jameis cook. Draft a rookie. We'll see you in 2 years, New Orleans. No, not an option. Pay Derek Carr.
Unfortunate injury at the combine. An interior offensive lineman, Andrew Voorhees for USC guard, was somebody that teams were keeping an eye on. Tore his ACL in the workouts. They were feared that he tore his ACL, and he did tear his ACL in the workouts, which is It's pretty unfortunate. Sucks, but we'll see what happens with him.
Over. Marijuana is now legal and available in Missouri to anyone over 21. And just...
Stuck with Mick.
Yep. Okay, still got it going on.
Mick Schaefer on the Zone with Jason Anderson.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
All right, we're continuing right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, Monday edition of the show. Thank you to Matt Tate earlier in the show joining us. We talked some college basketball, the Big 12 bracket, the SEC bracket. They are set. The Big 12 awards are out. The SEC awards expected tomorrow. We'll see what happens in that conference. So a lot of stuff that we got into and talked about in the first hour, some football in the noon hour as well. And now Mick Schaefer joining us here in the 1 o'clock hour, KSHB 41 Sports Director. Hi, Mick.
Cherry on top.
That's exactly right. Yes, the whole day has been a Sunday, and we just get to cap it off with a nice little cherry, sweet tasting Mick Schaefer.
My nickname in high school,
isn't it?
Jason, if you could, Drake, if you just mark that for me and remind me later, I'll have to go in.
Do cherries not taste? I mean, okay, are cherries sour? Sorry about that. I didn't know.
No, Drake, just pop that cherry button right there, and I'll cut that one.
Great.
Later.
Yep.
Hey,
just
Mick.
a little sourpuss you guys are.
Whoa,
That's what you're being on a Monday.
Whoa.
That's what you're being on a Monday.
Tasting.
That's what you're being on a Monday. You know what? On your own airwaves, Travis Kelce made his Saturday Night Live debut on KSHB.
I cannot wait to know what your actual TV guy review of all of this is. I'm thrilled. This actually is the cherry on top.
So we had a 41.
Did you watch it?
Absolutely live.
Really?
And so we had a 41 sports party there. A little get together with the entire staff. Everybody allowed to bring a +1. So we had about 8 or 10 in the basement at the house, and so we watched it from start to finish there.
Nice. What was the general reaction from the people in attendance?
It depended on like who you were. I like cringy stuff, like the taboo humor. Like, I'm gonna laugh at this, and I'm not supposed to. So I probably laughed harder at the American Girl doll skit than other people did.
That's what I said. That might have been my
Spider-Man
favorite.
meme, you too.
That might have been my
Unbelievable.
favorite one.
Yes.
I was cracking up. It was so funny. It was so funny, and he killed that character. He was brilliant in that character. He sold it. That was the best acting job he did all night with any skit. It was awesome.
Well, I thought that it was a credit to him that there weren't any football skits. There was never him playing himself, right? Which you would do a lot, I would think, with athletes who aren't used to doing this, right? These are all skits that any actor could have come in and done, and he had to carry most of them, right? He carried that skit. He carried some others, and he did a really good job. And a lot of times you'll see people on, and they're in like maybe half the skits or less than that. He was in all of them, and I really wish they would have aired the Creed one. I loved. Is it single straight male or whatever?
Straight white friend.
Straight male friend.
Straight male friend.
Straight male friend.
Could be white too.
Straight white.
Could be black. Could be white.
Straight male friend was hilarious. That was really good. I think it's obviously easier with production value and everything to get more laughs out of the digital ones, the ones that are pre-produced and all that stuff than the live ones. I don't know. His nickname's got to be Sucre. I would think the rest of the rest of his playing years.
What about Kurt Lightning?
Kurt Lightning's up there. That was a really good sketch.
Self-defense, Kurt Lightning. We've already decided that he can be a character in the next season of Cobra Kai.
Yes.
He's very much in line with the Terry Silver type
looked like
look.
Steven Seagal in the funeral one. Again, that was like cringy, but I'm like, I laughed at there.
Yes,
like
and he
pushing the envelope.
And he carried that one.
Yeah.
He carried that entire skit.
His best co-actor in that one was dead. Think about it.
Weekend at Bernice's.
That's exactly right.
Weekend at Bernice's was a movie.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, have you? The Glinda one
Dinosaurs been dead for a long time.
was live, right? That wasn't a pre-produced.
Which one was that?
The funeral.
That was live. Yeah.
That was live. Yeah. So because the like when he's Kurt Lightning, that one was pre-produced. And a couple of others were pre-produced. That one being live.
The straight male friend was.
Yep. That one was pre-produced. So you've got Glinda that he carried that one, and that was live.
American Girl was live.
Sucre was. He didn't really carry that.
No, but he didn't carry that. Yeah.
He just the two singing, which
I
watched from the corner. I've already used as a line like no less than 20 times this weekend.
So, but he didn't have to carry that one. They just went to him every once in a while. He had a few lines.
20 times this weekend, you think?
I used it as a line.
Okay.
I didn't say I watched from the corner.
That was only 1 or 2 times this weekend, probably.
Depends on if like you're in your man cave and you're watching TV and there's a spot in the corner that you're watching.
Also, technically, cul-de-sacs don't have corners, so I think you're good.
Depends on.
I watched from the roundabout.
Yeah. I watched from the end of the street.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
I thought, and then Weekend Update is usually, and I haven't watched this version of SNL in a long time. There are a lot of characters I hadn't seen before, whether members I haven't seen before. The Weekend Update's usually the best thing. Yost and Che are hilarious, but that went forever. They had 3 different guests come on. Actually, 4 total, but in 3 different skits. I thought they could have done maybe without the Dilbert and given us our Creed Humphrey lifting girls up.
Yeah, don't need the Dilbert. Plus,
I like Dilbert. I think that the costume was so unsettling alone that I wanted to see
I couldn't
it.
tell who
were
it was.
Who were the other ones that came in for Weekend Update?
Punky and Mikey Day talking about how she gets everybody's names wrong.
And then the last
Sarah,
one.
And then Sarah, who's insane, and I do like her.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were robbed not getting getting the NFL Gives Back sketch.
Well, even with all that, they ran over, so they cut the ending.
Yes,
there.
cut the ending.
I'm watching it. I'm like, I'm going to call KSHB.
Yeah.
Why did you guys do this?
Exactly.
The one where Heidi Gardner is crying a lot. That was really good.
Really good.
Yes.
You could tell she wrote a lot of those because she was in bed with Kelsey that one time.
She was a
I'm
front
Garrett
backpack.
from Hinge.
She was a front backpack for Travis Kelce.
She was that. Whatever you do,
for her.
Garrett, do not kill them.
Why are you looking like the Stewie Griffin, like the character on your shirt?
You know what?
Wait,
that
you
one,
changed
that
into
one
that?
was pretty good, actually. I'm
I would've been-
reevaluating my power rankings.
I would have been
now.
okay with them dropping that one for the NFL Gives Back. I would have been okay if they
I
dropped
would've
that
too.
one.
I would have too.
Or the reality TV dating thing where they kept losing
That one
money.
made me laugh, but I still would have. I
could've-
preferred NFL Gives Back.
Well,
Could've
she's
done
really good. She's going to make anything funny. I can't remember her name, but she's the one that does the Drew Barrymore impressions. A lot of stuff. You got to feel her up in the in that one.
Yeah, I did. I did like that. Heidi was a big part of the show. Heidi
had to
Gardner was huge part of the show.
Well, and then like when I watch it live, in the back of my mind, I'm always kind of worried and anxious that someone's going to mess up or whatever. When I rewatched it the next morning with my son, I was able to enjoy a lot more. And it's like any comedy, the more you watch it, the more subtle things you can pick up, and you're less as critical on it and all that.
I was more nervous for him in the monologue than I've ever been for him on the field,
Right.
ever. Because I know he's got to figure it out on the field.
because with the monologue, you're by yourself.
Yeah.
You're up there by yourself. And like in the other skits, you've got people around you. You've got other people that are dropping lines and things like that you're playing off of. The monologue, like if you mess up like one time, you might immediately just start leaking oil. Just start leaking
He was
confidence.
fiddling with the ring he was wearing.
Yeah, the ring.
Pinky ring.
Which I just think was him being a human being for a second. I'm like, oh,
Yes.
you know what? Travis Kelce's a little nervous to be
very
hosting
nervous,
SNL.
as
Not so
everybody
much that
would
it
be.
wasn't great, but he was a little nervous. We don't see Travis Kelce
Yeah.
nervous very often.
Well, that first time's always going to be.
Gotta be
the
crazy.
first appearance is just going to be so nerve wracking. They did break it up.
Completely.
They had a couple things that they
Yep.
tossed
More.
Yeah,
more.
to get laughs, that usually calms you down, right? You get that first big laugh, and then you can settle into
And
it.
then the Catching Kelsey little clip that she's hilarious.
That was good. That one was really good.
She said nothing funny. She's hilarious.
And then he had that weird sort of suit scarf thing that was going down the middle of his
Yeah.
double-breasted suit.
I've been on this. So it's a Dior suit, and I think it actually might be a separate piece that you end up wearing, almost like a scarf based off the fashion show lookbook that I saw of it earlier. I'm gonna go back. I'll try to really nail this down for you.
Is this something that
he
came
can
out in
pull
the
off any look, right?
Yeah. Is this something that came out in the Clyde Edwards-Helaire fashion show that he was a part of?
That
on
was mostly
Parade Day?
furs and leathers, as far as I could tell. Not sure if they were real furs or not.
He's a hunter.
Have to look back on that one
He
as
might have.
well. Yeah.
Edwards-Helaire is a hunter?
Oh, big hunter.
Yep.
Yep.
I didn't know that about him. Interesting.
He's Louisiana.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hunting
no,
and working on cars.
That would totally make sense, yeah. But no, I thought he did really well. And I'd said a couple of weeks ago when they announced of Saturday Night Live, I don't think The Rock is in his future, but I do think there's a chance that post-playing career that there is a future for the entertainment industry for Travis Kelce, and if he continues to do well, that there's a generation of kids that may know him for that versus like we know him for Travis Kelce, the football player. Like the kids growing up now have no idea about The Rock and wrestling. The Rock is just a superstar actor, top billing leading man. That's what he is. well, he was a football player and a wrestler before all that
Yeah.
and then made the transition. I don't think that's Travis Kelce's future, but I do think he's got a future in this when he's done playing football.
I mean, look, your Q score can get you a lot of jobs over your acting chops, right?
Yeah.
And so after the Super Bowl, where that's the big storyline, that brought in the casual fan, the two brothers playing against
Yeah.
each other.
Yep.
The mom, she's out there appearing in commercials, and she's all over the place. That got the casual fan to know more about Travis Kelce, because let's face it, he's a tight end, right? You got to do more than what a quarterback would, and now he's on SNL to where like he is elevated even more, I think.
I showed the NFL Gives Back to my wife.
Yeah.
I showed her that one. And Jason Kelce comes on the screen, and I said, well, that's Travis's brother, Jason. She goes, I know. I'm like, that's what this year has done.
He's a center.
There's zero chance a year ago she would have known who Jason Kelce was and might have asked, is he related to Travis Kelce? Pick him out of these 10 guys.
Yeah.
Zero chance. But he shows up on screen, and I'm thinking, hey, that's Travis's brother. I know. Okay, there you go. That's what the last few weeks, month has done for that family.
Before this, they had done a ranking of all the athletes all time or sports figures. Like, Steinbrenner hosted SNL once, right? And just sports figures who had hosted Saturday Night Live and ranked them all. Of course, Peyton Manning was number one.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Overall. Has he done it multiple times?
I think he's been back a few times now.
I can't imagine he would have only done it once. He's too good.
And so, and surprisingly, there have been like over 30 athletes all time or sports, whether it's owners or, head coaches, people like that. And he's got to be top 5 easily, I would guess. I wish I could remember the ones like directly behind, Peyton Manning, who's going to be 1-1 all time, right?
I just saw a picture that somebody had put out of like different people that had hosted, and it was Peyton and Eli, Tom Brady, and then J.J. Watt. And we were kind of comparing, because somebody texted in and said, did we like it because it's the Kansas City market,
Right, yeah.
or what did people outside of the Kansas City, would they have had the same reaction? And we were trying to think of like, okay, who have been the other athletes that have hosted that we might view like on that level?
I didn't even
And I'm
know
like,
J.J. Watt had hosted.
And I'm like, well, J.J. Watt, but here's the thing. So I went and searched SNL J.J. Watt, and just to see what the reaction was, and all of the comments were from February 1st, 2020. The Chiefs had a big day the next day. We were out that Saturday night in Miami on February 1st of 2020 enjoying pre-Super Bowl stuff.
That was a week before the Super Bowl, though, right?
The Super Bowl was 2-2.
It was
Super
on
Bowl
the second.
February 2nd.
That's right, okay.
February 2nd. So February
that
1st.
17th game, pushing things back a week.
February 1st, there's a reason I didn't remember J.J. Watt was hosting Saturday Night Live, because he was on that night. And we were in Lauderdale, and there was a lot of stuff going on there. But the reaction there was, J.J. Watt was great. He was very funny. So I don't know. I don't remember that, but I don't know. I don't know what the reaction would be outside of Kansas City with casual fans, but those that cover the NFL seem to be pretty universal that he was awesome. It was funny. That's my reaction. He was there. He was hosting. He was a part of skits. And I thought he was funny.
I mean, they had him
done it.
They trusted him with an accent for one of the skits, right?
What a choice, by the way.
He did have an accent.
I just wonder if they're like, what's your best accent? Can you do like Australian? Can you do English? Whatever.
That's a great point. I thought that live, and we haven't discussed today. They got him do an accent, and it was okay.
Yeah.
Here's the Dior suit in a different color. You see, it looks like you like flip it over. It's a strange.
Every piece of clothing looks great on hot people.
Right, yeah, and so that
the line was, is this a Hemsworth brother? I don't know
also
about?
A great line.
Exactly right.
Also a great line. There's a tweet here that has 0 likes. I'm gonna bring the spotlight to this one tweet because they make a very funny and perhaps useful comparison for what Travis Kelce's career could turn into from another NFL player.
Okay,
it's not J.J. Watt. It's not The Rock. It's O.J. Simpson. Now, everybody, don't go all the way to the end.
He had a successful film career
as a comedic actor, predominantly.
Yeah. He was in.
Travis
Kelce
him
with the Naked Gun series.
Exactly. Travis Kelce could be an action star. We could see him do that, but it seems like he could really play up some sort of hammy comedy, and then hopefully their careers diverge again.
I would guess that would be the
That
case.
would be my prediction. Is there's a brief.
Yes, we can all hope for that.
There's just they have some similarities for a while.
We can all hope
and then
that's the
stop
case.
having similarities.
But also, I don't want him to think maybe I hang it up a year early because I can go and do this. No,
I don't want him to take any actual inspiration.
You weren't that good, Travis.
From OJ.
Okay, so chill out. You're not that good. Or Jim Brown that got into.
But Naked Gun's when I figured out when I knew that I obviously was not around in real time for watching OJ and Naked Gun, and I mean I still haven't seen Naked Gun, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. But like in retrospect, that seems insane. And in the moment, apparently it didn't seem insane because he apparently pulled it off.
No, I mean he was a huge star.
He killed
Nordberg, right? Was that his character name?
There was a Norberg in there, but I don't remember which one. I'm guessing
him,
it was
maybe. Yeah.
Must Kill the Queen. Reggie Jackson.
Yes, Reggie Jackson.
Got that.
Brian Bosworth, a somewhat successful actor.
Yeah.
Do you think
absolutely.
that
somewhat
Stone Cold?
Some would say amazing actor that
he was
really
he was
didn't
the
get
lead in Stone Cold.
Yeah, I mean, how did he not get more roles based off that? That's just one of the great missed opportunities in life.
Hollywood's trying to get Gronk to like be in stuff, and it's clearly like we all see it, right? Like this, we don't need to make that happen. Do you think Travis Kelce can move up the all-time tight end list by having a better post-playing career than Gronk?
I don't know.
I think you might be able to. I think your point about him being recognizable post-playing career might be, oh yeah, Gronk was this big robot of a man who just sort of is a polar bear who just caught touchdowns and blocked people. But Travis Kelce, everyone's going to know Travis Kelce.
He's hurt by his size, right? Being that big. I mean, all actors are tiny, and so it's got to be certain roles for giants.
That's true. That's true.
We need another Fantastic Four reboot. I actually think Marvel's doing one.
How many guesses or how many players would you name if I said there's a Chiefs player, one of Kelce's teammates, that's going to make a cameo in a Saturday Night Live skit? How many players would you guess before you got to Creed Humphrey?
That's a great question. So I thought
48.
Kelce would be on it. Jason. I would have guessed Mahomes first.
That would have been my first guess for teammates.
Especially when he threw out the Kermit voice.
Yeah.
More.
I'm
like,
here.
Okay, he's gonna be. He's here. He's somewhere.
Let's go get Trav.
It's a great question. Although, I mean, who would move the needle the most after Mahomes and Kelce? That, like, again, casual fans know.
But I don't think Mahomes wanted. I think Mahomes is eventually going to host, and it's going to be the Mahomes show, and Kelce may or may not make a cameo. But I kind of wonder if Mahomes. I just don't want to. I don't want to step on your SNL. and I'll be back.
I feel like whoever it was, they would have had to introduce them. Why did you get Chief Center Creed Humphrey? Or why did you get Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones?
Yeah.
Chris Jones would have been so good.
I think
why wasn't Chris Jones lifting people up?
I know.
Ugh.
I will say that Mahomes won't come near Kelce when it comes to how good the Saturday Night Live hosting would be.
No.
I think Mahomes is
getting
better.
The only one who could come close to Peyton Manning is Baker Mayfield.
I think Baker would.
I don't think he's ever going to get up high enough.
I think Baker would be really good in that. He never hosted, right?
I don't think so.
I don't remember it.
So.
No, but I think he'd be really good. I think Mahomes has more experience because he's done the TV commercials. But I think just natural.
Yeah.
That Kelce is just the natural.
I think Jason Kelce's more natural.
You do?
Oh yeah. The Travis. Just watching kind of how they conduct themselves on the podcast. Jason's much more of a host on it. I think they both can roll with the punches, but I think Jason's even better at it.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate that.
Doesn't need to like go win Super Bowls or whatever. That's not what I'm saying here. But I think he's got. Man, that's the one thing he's got better over Travis, and that's saying something because Travis is really good at it.
Absolutely. The conference tournaments are set in stone. And
we're all talking about that 7-10 game on Wednesday night, Bedlam Part 3, aren't we?
Isn't it interesting that like the Wednesday night games are pretty good? Like I don't know the last time I've been like, Wednesday night games. There's some real intrigue because
they could be playing
3 out
games
of the
for
4,
the NCAA tournament.
3 out of the 4 can still make the tournament by winning a couple of games. Texas Tech has to win the whole thing. Oklahoma probably has to play to Saturday. They'd have to get by Oklahoma State, Texas, and then presumably Kansas State to be in.
I think Oklahoma State's at the, you got to beat Oklahoma and then beat Texas.
If Oklahoma State plays on Friday night, I think they're in, regardless of result against Kansas State or TCU.
Which is good.
And
They're
West
a great
Virginia's
matchup
already
against
in.
Oklahoma. They're a bad matchup against Texas.
West Virginia's already in. So they got 7 teams, and Boy, Texas Tech has some stuff going on around their program. And then you got Bedlam. The Wednesday night is really intriguing. It's a fun night. And it's not just a, hey, this team could make a run and maybe make that, but the other 3 schools that are playing are just like fillers that somebody had to play in the tournament because you had to have 10 schools there. But this is a fun Wednesday leading into a really fun Thursday, which could be an awesome local Friday. That 2:30 could be Mizzou versus Tennessee. 6 o'clock could be KU versus Baylor. And at 8:30 could be K-State versus Oklahoma State.
Thank you.
Or Texas.
Thank
sorry.
you.
Texas.
Oklahoma State.
K-State versus Texas. More than likely, that's the matchup. But that 8-hour window from 2:30 to 10:30 of Mizzou, Tennessee, KU, Baylor, K-State, Texas, if that happens, would be as good as it gets on a one-day conference tournament run locally. I mean, it's
cool that you get to, just watch those games. It's cool that you get to do that.
Are you going to play in them? I'm like, what are you doing? So
I work them.
Oh, you do work now?
Nonstop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you got to go from Nashville then to Kansas City?
No, just the Big
good.
12 games on Friday.
That's good. Well, that's not till 6 o'clock. You're fine.
Well, I've got 4 o'clock show and 5 o'clock show.
Why?
6 o'clock show, 6:30 show, all live from that really cold balcony at P&L.
What do you have Aaron and Haley for if you've got to do those?
They're there too. We actually cover stuff. We don't send one person out, okay? We don't send 3 or 4 people to the Super Bowl. We send 11, okay? We're not sending 1 or 2 to the Big 12 tournament.
That's cool.
Big 12 championship. We're sending like a dozen.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Todd's got us taken care of. So Todd does.
You know
what
that scene in
Todd
the scene
can do
in
by himself
Avengers.
what 12 KSHB 41 employees can do. That's what I'm
That's it.
taking from
Yeah.
this.
You know the scene in Avengers where it's, I am this, we have all this, and then they respond, we have a Hulk.
Yes.
We have a Lebo.
You got Lebo.
So,
I love it.
however many gods or strength of however many, we got a Lebo.
We got a Lebo.
So we're pretty much good. Thank you.
Next time, if they ask if you're a god, please say yes. Noted.
Yeah.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Learn Funniest Best next.
Mick Schaefer in the Zone is brought to you by Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon, home of the 2-story biscuit sandwiches from Denver Biscuit Company all morning.
You're right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Briscoe, Drake, and Mick Schaefer. All right, I think Learn Funniest Best is all going to be combined into one conversation. But I do want to let you know Learn Funniest Best is presented by Pyramid Roofing. Nice weather finally here, kind of, around the corner. Today, we'll see what's around the corner as well. You've probably started getting to those outside chores. I did yesterday. When you were outside this weekend, did you take some time and see how the fall and winter treated your roof and gutters? Call Mike and his crew at Pyramid Roofing for a free estimate, 816-966-1101 or pyramidroofingkc.com. All right, we'll go around the room in our learned. My learned is the Chiefs are not going to be franchise tagging Orlando Brown. That is from Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's out there. The Chiefs are not franchising Orlando Brown. Your guys learned the same thing?
I learned that I learned that I don't know what the Chiefs are going to do at left tackle.
My funniest is some of the reactions around the NFL to the Chiefs not franchise tagging Orlando Brown.
That's not my funniest.
Oh.
My funniest is anything else.
I thought LFB all came from over the weekend, and this is no longer the weekend, guys.
We had plans. We all had our Learn Funniest Best.
Yeah, as far as you know.
We all had somewhat or close to a Learn
We
Funniest
all were
Best.
going to get there.
I had real LFBs this week.
I did too. I had multiples of each one.
I had them.
Yeah, I'm disappointed.
We could still get there.
We could, but
real quick. Later.
Orlando Brown. The Chiefs are not tagging Orlando Brown. That is incredibly surprising. They have until next Monday, Tuesday to work out a long-term deal before he is set to become a free agent on the 13th. So that would be a week from today.
Next Monday.
That they could do that. Other reports are that the player has been notified. The Chiefs will still work on a long-term deal with Orlando Brown, but he is not franchise tagged. I've got 3 reactions to that. What are your guys' initial thoughts?
Confusion.
Okay.
Yeah, confusion's up there. I asked my my panel last night, are the Chiefs going to tag Orlando Brown? All 3 of them said, of course.
It's one of the easiest decisions that
Should
would be
I
made.
fire my panel members?
Yes.
For good, like Saran and Blair.
Rappaport here has a one nugget that is different from some of the other terms I've seen, just saying, quote, but the tag number is too high. Brown could become a free agent. So it's the Chiefs balking at the idea of paying him $20 million this year. Or that seems crazy. And why not keep the leverage to where you could trade him?
Or the tag number is too high and the Chiefs don't want to put $20 million on the books right now.
For sure. I think there's something to that there. But they would have to be pretty confident they're getting a long-term deal done, because otherwise he walks for a compensatory formula pick. That's no good.
They would have until next Wednesday to be within compliance of the NFL salary cap.
Yeah.
So if they place the $20 million tag on Orlando Brown, that would take them to, as it currently stands right now, roughly a $23 million deficit. Over the cap, Spotrac, they've got different numbers. Joe Corey said last week the Chiefs are working at a $3 million deficit right now. Former agent, little tight end. I'll kind of take his word over that he's saying they're working at a $3 million deficit. You put the franchise tag on Orlando Brown, that money automatically goes on the books. They'd be looking at a $23 million deficit to where next Wednesday they've got to be under that cap. While they can do some things with Frank Clark and Patrick Mahomes to be able to get under that cap, do they get under the cap to a degree that they can go out and be players in the free agency, which a week from today is when you can start negotiating with players, which is why Orlando Brown, they have a week from today to get something done long-term before he starts, conversations with other teams. Here are my 3 thoughts. My initial thought was confusion, but that's not even one of my 3 thoughts. My 3 reactions. Initial thought was confusion. Reaction or guess. First one was the Chiefs are going to announce a long-term deal in the next couple days. That was my first thought, right? When we went to break and saw that. Then we see other reports of players been notified. He's set to be free agent. They're still working on a long-term deal. So that one was kind of out. Second one was Orlando Brown's camp said, if you place a franchise tag on me, that's going to be an issue. It's going to be contentious. I want to be here, but don't franchise tag me again. And we can work in good faith, but I'm not playing if you franchise tag me again. I'm pissed off. Okay. Third one is, and maybe the most likely, okay, Orlando, we know what you want. We've talked to your people. Let's see if you can get it. Go ahead. If you can get it, you can get it. If not,
talk around the league these next couple days and then come back.
Come on and circle back around, and we'll start talking again, because we don't think you can. That is a game of chicken, because if you don't, and I don't think the Chiefs, here comes a double negative. I don't think the Chiefs don't have a plan. I think the Chiefs will have a plan if Orlando Brown walks. You mentioned the compensatory formula. I don't know what the plan is, though. I don't know what
would he garner in a trade, like if you tagged him and traded him?
I mean, even if you got a second-round draft pick for him.
I mean, you can look at what the Chiefs. The Chiefs, that combo is basically equal to a late first,
when
right?
When does the compensatory pick land?
It would depend on the contract he signs. It would probably be the end of the third round weighted. But if you sign a big free agent, then that starts getting canceled out, and so it's not as predictable.
If Juju walks, if McCole Hardman walks,
let me tell you something about Juju real quick.
Hold on, real quick. But I would just say the compensatory pick, the best it could be is at the end of the third round.
Juju's franchise tag number would be about $20 million. We talked a lot about wide receivers earlier. We talked a lot about being worried about a long-term deal for Juju. You'd be paying him a premium. That feels really inflated to me. But on the open market, what do you think Juju's average annual value is going to be? We're talking about this earlier. Could he get $18 million average annual value on a 5-year deal?
Ooh, I wouldn't give Juju $18 million for 5 years.
No, I wouldn't, but somebody would. I think somebody probably would. And so you want to tag him for 20 for 1?
Spotrac had him as, and this doesn't mean that that's what he's going to get, but Spotrac had him as market value 4 years, 14.6 per year. But given, then Spotrac does a formula of players that are similar, numbers, age, and free agency market, and they put it at roughly 15.7 per year. So they added $1 million because of all the surrounding circumstances with the free agent market and age and everything like that.
I'm guessing they're not going to tag anybody.
If you tag Juju Smith-Schuster,
interesting.
Why would Juju sign a long-term deal? If I'm Juju, you're playing, cool. I'll play 1 year, $20 million. I'll play another year for $20 million, because if you give me 2 or 3, what if you give me 2 years, $30 million? No, I'll take the 1 year, 20.
Right.
And then go give it another shot this time next year. I can't imagine they would franchise
It's
tag
the only
him.
franchise candidate that makes sense. Thornhill would be too expensive.
My guess.
I'm grabbing things.
My guess is they've already had conversations with Orlando Brown's camp, and Orlando Brown might have said, I increased my number from a year ago. I played better this year. I bet on myself, and I won. I want more than what we landed on last year. And the Chiefs might have said...
That when they break out the x-rays of Mahomes' ankle?
Yeah. And the Chiefs might have said, okay, see if you can get it. But it's still interesting because you could place the exclusive franchise tag on, or non-exclusive. Is exclusive, non-exclusive? One of the franchise tags that allows him to go out and negotiate with another team to then, if they sign him, you can then work out a trade.
But the teams have to be willing to put up the 2 first-round picks in that deal,
well,
right? If you were to match it.
So there's a
you have
non-exclusive and the exclusive. Let me look it up real quick. The difference is
non-exclusive. You other teams can negotiate, and then you get a chance to match. And if you don't match, they send you the draft picks.
Right.
I think that's mine.
So
I got my facts straight.
The exclusive is they can go out and seek a trade, and then when they seek a trade and work out with or a team, then the price of that, sort of like a Frank Clark.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Frank Clark franchise tag traded to the Chiefs. It wasn't just 2 first-rounders. It was they worked out the parameters of the deal with Frank Clark's contract and worked out the parameters of the deal and what a trade would be to bring him in. That would be what I would have guessed. So, yeah, the exclusive tag,
can't negotiate.
The Chiefs control the trade terms. So if you, non-exclusive, you would get 2 first-rounders.
Right.
You wouldn't put a non-exclusive on him because no way a team's giving up 2 first-rounders for Orlando Brown.
You would put a non-exclusive on him because the number's a little lower, right?
Well, yeah, but there's no way you're getting 2 first-rounders for him. If your plan was, we'll put a franchise tag on him, we're not going to pay him the money he wants, so we'll trade him.
For the trade. I just mean, like, in normal doing of business, that would have made sense. Because if someone wanted to offer 2 first for Orlando Brown, the Chiefs would have taken it.
Yeah. The franchise tag would be the exclusive, so therefore you can negotiate the trade terms with different teams, which might just be even if it was a second-rounder.
Right.
You know, okay, great. You're going to sign Orlando Brown, you give up a second-rounder, which would be surprising if a team didn't do that, right? If a team wanted Orlando Brown, but the Chiefs might be looking at it and saying, we don't think he's going to get that. So feel free to go and talk and circle back around to us. And if you are serious about wanting to continue to play and be a part of a championship organization, when you discuss things with other teams, come back to us, and we will gladly talk to you about matching it, if that's what you get. But I want you to go out and see what you can get on the open market. If you feel like you can get this on the open market, you know, we'll be team players. Go do it. But you'd better have a left tackle in mind.
Well, that's the thing.
Because you don't threaten your job that I want this amount of money because this job is talking to me, unless you're willing to actually take that job.
I think your logic is good. I am, in terms of what the Chiefs are, in terms of what's going on here, it feels like playing Russian roulette with like 3 or 4 bullets in the chamber, though. Like, that is a risky gamble, I think.
Well, and this is all coming from his agent, right? Because it's gone out to like 3 or 4 people. This isn't from the Chiefs.
And when it says the player's been notified, I would guess that's coming from...
McDowell just said the phrase, the Chiefs have informed Orlando Brown Jr., but yeah, I would imagine that's the case.
It's all agent.
Yeah. But it's definitely not happening, the tagging that would be.
So,
well, I mean, yeah, according to
sure, yeah.
If they were planning on letting him go and figure out what the market is, then all of the, they've got a week to figure out a long-term deal, wouldn't matter. Because that means they're already at a point to where they know what Orlando Brown wants, they know what their number is, they're not willing to overpay. They wouldn't overpay for Tyreek Hill, so Orlando, we're not going to overpay for you. We didn't want to overpay for Trent Williams. Orlando, we're not going to overpay for you. So go and find out what it is. Well, then that long-term deal wouldn't be done before next week. That would be, he'll be negotiating, he'll be talking. The negotiating window opens up next Monday at like 3 o'clock, or maybe it's 11 o'clock in the morning next Monday. Regardless. Then he'll find out what he's going to get. And maybe he returns to the Chiefs. Maybe there's a player that the Chiefs are expected to be cut. They're expecting that this player is going to be on the open market. It's going to be cut. Or there's a player at the Combine that they really loved, and they think they can maybe move up and get him and not have to pay $20 million for a left tackle.
We've also seen them get decent play out of non-elite players. Andrew Wiley being a hot commodity is evidence of that.
That's right tackle, though.
No, for sure, absolutely. But we have seen them improve players on the fly. My biggest balking at this point is just are you going to lose Orlando Brown for nothing?
Exactly.
That value proposition hurts me.
You would lose him for
compensatory stuff,
compensatory
formula.
So at best in this scenario, it would be a difference between a second-round pick and an end of the third. Right?
Yes, and because they're also
what you're
sacrificing,
if they lose
Thornhill or whatever, right? But if they go and they sign a free agent offensive tackle, and I don't know who it would be, but if they spend a similar amount of money to what Brown gets, it's all neutral. It's just nothing, So
only if it's a similar amount of money.
Right.
There's not a tackle on the market that would get what Orlando Brown's going to get in free agency.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Isn't that an interesting sentence to say? That Orlando Brown
now.
is clearly the top left tackle in free agency if he hits
so
it?
it would be the best case scenario would be about 45 to 50 picks. You're drafting lower, right? In what you would get returned for Orlando Brown,
and it's total
difference
money.
Between
it's not just
trading
for
him and and just losing him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, both tackles are now free. 2023 starting left tackle Joe Thuney.
Sign me up.
He's making $22 million. I tell you what, he's making too much money for a guard. I don't hate it, but I don't know that that's the plan.
I mean, he did it for a game.
Yeah.
In a pinch. And last year when Orlando Brown wasn't showing up to camp for, a day or two, and Andy Reid said, oh, Joe Thuney could play left tackle on a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you're going to put your money where your mouth is, quite literally. Well, I guess not literally, but quite figuratively. Mm-hmm. You would be putting your money where... What if Brett Veach did walk out with just like money in his mouth? Maybe Orlando.
Jason Anderson said literally.
Orlando, I'm putting money where my mouth is, tuning my left tackle. Be odd if they did that. I don't know. That's also dangerous because there's bacteria and germs all over that money.
If they were excited about the Thuney plan, let's just follow that to its logical conclusion. If they were excited about the Thuney plan and then got a mid-second back for Brown on the franchise tag, I would not be here bawling my eyes out. I am just so interested to see what the next few days look like. And right now, in the meeting rooms, are the Chiefs saying, think he's going to come back to us, we want to get this long-term deal done, we just need it to come down a few $1 million a year? Or are they saying, all right, We did it. That bridge is on fire. We are moving on to something else. It's hard for me to imagine if they were ready to move on that thoroughly, they couldn't find anything in a trade package with him on the tag still.
You'd have to know what the market is, right?
Have to, yeah. Well, because the agent has to know, and Brown has to know for a sign and trade kind of thing,
and
right?
The Chiefs would have to know with what other
trade
teams
and
might
sign
be,
in the NFL. I guess.
What might be out there, and if Brett Veach doesn't feel like even a second rounder is available for Orlando Brown, then that would mean that he doesn't feel like he's going to get the money that Orlando Brown thinks he's going to get.
Right. Yep.
So teams aren't even willing to trade a second rounder for him. They ain't going to be paying the money that he wants. But it only takes one. It takes one team to go, we'll give you 22 per year, and we won't juke the stats in the final year. We'll give you $5 million, 105 million, 5 years, $105 million that you'll make over those 5 years.
Another compensatory thing, that would be in the next draft. So you're also snoozing that by a year as opposed to when you would get this year.
That's right.
I hadn't thought about that, just saw on Twitter.
So that would...
I actually think they'd be better with Tooney Allegretti on the left side than Brown Tooney.
It'd be a hell of a lot cheaper, too.
Well, then what do you...
Although Allegretti, I think, is a free agent right now also.
Yeah, I was
they
gonna
can
say,
figure it out.
His clock's up, right?
Yeah,
well,
I think so.
Let's say they bring him back in Wiley. What do you do with Smith? Because you've got Tooney, Allegretti, Humphrey, and Wiley. You can't have a guy that's name is just Smith. You got to have it.
Need more syllables.
Tooney, Allegretti, Humphrey, Wiley, Smitty. We're good. All right.
Okay. He Smith's Trey. Trey ends with the Y.
Trey E. Smith. Just call him Trey E. Tooney, Allegretti, Humphrey, Trey E. Wiley. Done. There's your offensive line. I mean, we'll find out, but fascinating news. That's our Learn Funniest, and I'm not sure if that's best. I have no
I'm not
idea.
sure it's funny.
Or it's certainly a learn.
We learned it, though.
We definitely learned that, and it's presented by Pyramid Roofing. PyramidRoofingKC.com. Call Mike and his crew at Pyramid Roofing for a free estimate, 816-966-1101. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Mick Schaefer's brought to you by Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon. As seen on Food Network, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and Man vs. Food, try it today at 42nd and Pennsylvania in Westport.
I'm here with Brad McGee from LBA Home Services. What you got there?
This? It's a Rubik's Cube.
Haven't seen one of those in a while.
Learned when I was a kid.
Looks tricky.
Not when you know how to do it. Millions of combinations, but only one solution.
I see where this is going.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. A few more nuggets, I guess, part of this whole deal with the Chiefs not franchising Orlando Brown. There were a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of people that were really down on Brett Veach a year ago, late March, when he traded Tyreek Hill and then signed MVS. And it was, this is your response. This is how you're going to go about it. Brett Veach sucks. It's terrible. They won a Super Bowl. They have a plan. They obviously have parameters in which they want to work within, with the franchise tag, with the salary cap. And there's also the aspect of, if you really don't want to pay Orlando Brown $20 million against the cap this year, placing a franchise tag on him and not being able to work out a trade with somebody, and Orlando Brown is demanding a certain amount of money, you now have Orlando Brown at $20 million on your cap, which I'm assuming they do not want. So the question moving forward is going to be, can they get something done for him long term? If not, what is he going to get in the open market? And maybe more importantly, what do the Chiefs do now? Where do they go at left tackle now? Because I don't know. Because the free agent class is not incredibly strong. He's going to demand a lot of money.
What's the draft class look like?
It's a great question. I haven't looked at tackles
I'll
much.
tell you,
The best aren't going to be there at 31.
That's right. That's right.
But
It's
the
the
thing
top prospects that are
yesterday.
long-term left tackles. Those guys will not be there at 31. I can guarantee you that.
But honestly, I haven't even started looking at tackles because I just assumed that Orlando Brown was going to be franchise tagged and they would work something out with him. But if they ended up trading him after the franchise tag, then yes, let's dive into the tackle market. I do think it puts more of a premium on signing Andrew Wiley.
I got a tweet here from Albert Breer just from a few seconds ago saying,
Right.
Chiefs' decision not to tag Orlando Brown came down to, I'm told, their desire to lock in a long-term left tackle this offseason. Tagging Brown doesn't do it. It'd basically guarantee he's free in 24, making it harder to do a deal because of the $20 million number now. They'll look at all options. So from my reading of that is the Chiefs just want a final answer. And I get it. I really do. But you're at risk of, I mean, if he walked next offseason, you would do it after another year of having him be your left tackle.
I'm seeing Nick Jacobs. I don't know who he works with or where he works at all.
He's got some really terrible people who
That's
could
right.
work with him.
Nick Jacobs from Eye in the Sky.
Oh, yeah, no, that's great. Oh, 4th and 1. That show's great.
4th and 1 podcast.
Yeah,
TV.
absolutely.
That's right. But no, Nick Jacobs quote tweeted Mike Garafolo and his minute 20 on NFL Network. Can't bring up and play it right now, but says, quote, the number is just too high. That's what the Chiefs feel like. The number is just too high. If they feel
the
like
number of the tag or
yes,
what they're asking for long term.
The franchise tag number is just too high, and if they feel like $20 million is too high for Orlando Brown, then Then my read on that is, Orlando, go see what you can get. We don't think you can get that. The way we're reading the market right now, you can't get that.
Or are they confident they can have somebody either in-house or drafted or free agent that can do as good of a job or better than him?
But also Albert Breer's sort of that tweet's sort of confusing because they want a long-term left tackle. Franchise tagging it doesn't mean you can only play for 1 year. It means you can still say Orlando Brown is your long-term left tackle. Yeah. They don't feel like Orlando Brown is worth the money he's asking for to be their long-term plan at left tackle. That's what this says to me, is that they feel like if they're going to pay that money, it has to be for somebody that's better than what they're getting from Orlando Brown.
And you can make as many versions of the 0 sack shirts as you want, the PG version and the R-rated one.
Yeah.
But that was Orlando Brown's guy that flushed Mahomes out of the pocket at the end of the first half in the Super Bowl that eventually got him tackled and got that ankle injured again, right? That wasn't a sack, right? He scrambled forward for a couple yards, but he was flushed out by the right side, and the guy Orlando Brown was supposed to be protecting him from.
I believe that Veach has a plan. I believe that they have a pretty good idea of the market. Last year, the market changed in an instant when Christian Kirk got his contract. What's the market going to be for Orlando Brown? And if it's too rich for the Chiefs, then that means it's a pretty decent formula for the comp pick that they'll probably receive something, I would guess a third rounder around that for Orlando Brown walking. But you don't have a left tackle this year at this point. Could you trade for a left tackle? Maybe they view a trade and signing is more worthwhile. Maybe it's Laramie Tunsil. There's 2 first-rounders. We'll pay Laramie Tunsil. There you go. Got it figured out. Thank you, Mick.
Bye.
Your exclusive home of Championship Week. Sports Radio 810.